Chapter 1092. Old Wu was secretly regretting that his limelight had been stolen by Ning Fan. Suddenly, he heard Ning Fan reprimanding Zhu Er with a dissatisfied tone. I didn't say I was going to kill all the disciples of the Slaughter Temple. Don't talk nonsense. Back off. Master. I'll take my leave. Zhu Er, who was about to roll up his sleeves and fight, was shocked. He thought that he had made a mistake. He didn't expect that he would misunderstand his master's meaning. From his point of view, Ning Fan was a devil lord who could not tolerate even the slightest bit of anger. It was absolutely impossible for him to tolerate the rude words of a few juniors. However, the truth was that Ning Fan did not recklessly unleash his killing intent just because the disciple of the Slaughter Palace had spoken rudely to him. How unimaginable! A madman who even dared to kill the third step-well spirit of the Well of Worries was actually so tolerant towards a few juniors. Sigh, it was hard to guess what he was thinking. Zhu Er cursed inwardly, while Brother Wu and Crow Tingu took pleasure in Zhu Er's misfortune, secretly laughing at his flattery. Ning Fan was too lazy to care about the thoughts of the three idiots. He was more concerned about the reason why he was expelled by the disciples of the Slaughter Palace. From the words of these disciples, the one who ordered him to be expelled was not the Dark Sea Great Elder, but the Deputy Hall Master of the Slaughter Hall? Strange, why did the Slaughter Deputy Hall Master stop him from saving Shadi? The Slaughter Palace's functions were divided according to each generation's Slaughter Emperor as the Palace Master. Under the Palace Master, there was a Deputy Palace Master. Under the Deputy Palace Master was the Great Elder, who was in charge of the other elders. Under the Great Elder were the Pavilion Masters, Deacons and Disciples. When Ning Fan was in the Slaughter Palace, he had also heard about the existence of a Vice Palace Lord of the Slaughter Palace. He seemed to be an old monster who was going to advance to the sovereign realm soon. However, this person rarely moved about in the Eastern Heaven. His devil reputation seemed to be even less famous than the Great Elder of the Nether Sea. As the Deputy Hall Master, he did not need to manage any secular affairs. His only task was to cultivate in seclusion. It was said that he would only appear when the Slaughter Hall was in danger. At this moment, the Slaughter Hall was clearly not in danger of being exterminated. Yet this Deputy Hall Master had appeared. Logically speaking, Ning Fan coming to save Sha Di out of goodwill should be greatly beneficial to the revival of the Slaughter Palace. Why would the Vice Palace Hall Master stop him from doing so? Could it be that this person didn't want the Sha Di to be saved? Did he want to fight for power with Sha Di, the Temple Master? Or maybe he just didn't want the Slaughter Hall to get too involved with him. After all, he was clearly determined to fight the Dark Tribe to the death. All of a sudden, countless guesses emerged in Ning Fan's mind, but he was unable to verify them. Reign Immortal Lord, please don't make things difficult for us. We are only following orders. Reign Immortal Lord, please leave the Blood Sea Galaxy as soon as possible. Zhu Er's ferocious tone had really frightened the few disciples of the Slaughter Palace. They were at most at the Crossing Truth Realm. How would they dare to be presumptuous in front of Ning Fan? Now that they were frightened, their tone became much more respectful. I'm afraid I can't leave. I never give up halfway. According to what I know, the only one who can expel an elder of the Slaughter Hall is the Hall Master himself. The Vice Highness ordered me to be expelled. But did you obtain the warrant of the Palace Master? If you don't have the token, I can't approve of this matter. Ning Fan's expression was calm. With a flip of his hand, he took out an elder token of the Slaughter Palace. This token was not the one he had handed over to the Slaughter Palace. Instead, it was the spoils of war he obtained from killing Elder Fei He in the ruins of the Six Desires Immortal King. The rules of the Slaughter Palace were very bloody. If a disciple could kill an elder and seize the token, he would be able to replace the elder and become an elder. As for an elder, even the Vice Highness could not simply give the order to expel him. This is the elder token that Elder Fei He lost. As expected, it is in the hands of the Reign Immortal Lord. The few disciples of the Slaughter Palace were shocked. In the past, Fei He and Yao Qingyun brought Ning Fan to the Six Desires Immortal Cave to search for treasures. In the end, Fei He died. As Ning Fan's reputation became more and more well known, the Slaughter Palace had long guessed that Fei He's death was closely related to Ning Fan. Today this matter was finally confirmed. Since the Rain Immortal Lord has the Elder Token, you are a member of the group of elders of the Slaughter Palace. Of course, we won't dare to stop you anymore. No. We shouldn't call you the Rain Immortal Lord anymore. We should address you as Elder Ning. Since Elder Ning has the Elder Token, the Vice Highness naturally can't expel you. We will let Elder Ning pass right now. The few disciples of the Slaughter Palace removed the blocking formation at the border of the starry sky and made way for Ning Fan. Then they stood upright on both sides of the starry sky and cupped their fists to salute Ning Fan. The respect they showed when they saluted Ning Fan again was far greater than what they showed in the beginning. Obviously, the identity of an elder of the Slaughter Palace carried considerable weight in the hearts of these disciples of the Slaughter Palace. Ning Fan nodded his head. It would be best if this matter could be resolved peacefully. Just as he was about to continue moving forward on the cloud, a cold voice suddenly resounded from the other end of the starry sky. Nonsense. This elder token is fake. My Slaughter Palace refuses to acknowledge this young man's elder status. What bullshit, Rain Immortal Monarch. If you know what's good for you, get out of the Blood Sea Star region at once. Otherwise, don't blame me for being merciless. The cold voice kept getting closer and closer. The invisible sound wave suddenly turned into a gigantic flaming fist and smashed towards Wu Xianyun's direction. The wind generated by the fist directly shattered some of the abandoned stars in the surroundings. It even sent a few disciples of the Slaughter Palace flying away. The wind generated by the fist carried an unimaginably scorching heat. The temperature of the cold starry sky suddenly rose. It was a punch at the level of an immortal king. This time, Old Wu had seized the opportunity to show off. Without waiting for Ning Fan to attack, he had already leaped forward. With a flick of his sleeve, billowing black wind rushed towards the flaming fist light. Speaking of which, it was strange. That fist light clearly had the strength of an immortal king's attack. However, it became unstable after being blown by the black wind. Every time it landed on Wu Xianyun, it would collapse a little. When it landed on Wu Xianyun, it was already reduced to an illusory fist force. With a sneeze from Old Wu, it was directly shattered and turned into nothingness. At the other end of the starry sky, a soft exclamation of surprise was heard. Obviously, the person did not understand how Old Wu, a mere immortal venerable with a single first tribulation immortal venerable from the ancient times, could defend against his immortal king's attack so easily. Not long after that, a gigantic bird that was engulfed in raging flames flew towards them from afar in the starry sky. Wherever it passed, the hollow space would be set ablaze. Dragging a long trail of flames behind it, it flew across an immeasurable distance in an instant. That gigantic bird was not a demon. Instead, it was the incarnation of an immortal king realm old monster. As soon as the flames fell, a burly man with a ghastly face wearing flaming armor walked out from the flames. He raised his finger and drew a line across the starry sky. Immediately, a crack appeared in the starry sky and flames rushed out from it. In an instant, the entire starry sky within a million li was sealed by this person's flames, surrounding Ning Fan and the others in the center of the sea of flames. The person who came was none other than one of the immortal king realm elders of the Slaughter Palace. His cultivation base was at the third tribulation realm. As for his name, Ning Fan vaguely remembered that this person was called Immortal King Punishment Flame. He was also a cultivator who cultivated in seclusion. In the past, Ning Fan's cultivation base was still low. He had only seen him once in the crowd from afar. Now he was on equal footing with him. As soon as Immortal King Punishment Flame appeared, a few disciples of the Slaughter Palace immediately came to greet him. Elder Punishment Flame, please don't attack. This is a misunderstanding. Everyone in the world knows that the Elder Token of the Slaughter Palace is condensed from the slaughter intent of the first-generation killing emperor. It can't be forged at all. Elder Ning's Elder Token has been verified by us. It is indeed authentic. This matter. Humph. Get lost. Did I ask you a question? Immortal King Punishment Flame's eyes narrowed. A vast aura force spread out from him, instantly causing the few disciples of the Slaughter Palace to spurt out blood. They kept retreating and no longer dared to speak carelessly. They also did not dare to approach immortal King Punishment Flame rashly. Rumor had it that this immortal king was unreasonable and unreasonable. Today, the few disciples of the Slaughter Palace had finally witnessed it for themselves. Ningfan frowned slightly. He wholeheartedly wanted to avoid a conflict with the Slaughter Palace. However, judging from the arrogant attitude of this immortal King Punishment Flame, it was obvious that he did not intend to reason with him. The Elder Token is fake? He's really lying through his teeth. Reign Immortal Monarch? What a great title. I don't know how much of your title is fake. However, this servant of yours really does have some capabilities. There aren't many First Tribulation Immortal Venerables in the entire Eastern Heaven who can withstand a single punch from me. You're not bad. You don't look familiar. What's your name? Immortal King Punishment Flame looked at Ningfan as if he was nothing. However, he showed a slightly fearful expression towards Old Wu, who had withstood his punch. He did not know about Old Wu's notoriety. If he did, he probably would not dare to talk to Old Wu so calmly. From Xingyan's point of view, it was already polite for an immortal king like him to ask about Old Wu's name. Unfortunately, Old Wu did not care about Xingyan at all. He just kept digging his nose and secretly wiped it on Zhu Er's clothes. Thus, Zhu Er was enraged and began to wrestle with Old Wu. Immortal King Punishment Flame, who was completely ignored by Old Wu, was instantly enraged. He snorted coldly and no longer paid attention to Old Wu. His eyes under the ghost mask turned to Ningfan and said coldly, "I've verified that your Elder Token is fake. You can get lost now. You don't have the right to enter this starry sky." His tone was extremely disdainful. It was obvious that he did not put Ningfan in his eyes at all. Xingyan could not be blamed for that. He could only blame Ningfan for his young bone age and his rapid rise in the Eastern Heaven. Compared to those old monsters who were tens of millions of years old, Ningfan's bone age was just like a baby who was still wet behind the ears. Besides, Immortal King Punishment Flame was a loyal follower of the Vice Palace Master. He was also in seclusion all year round and rarely went out in the Eastern Heaven. Therefore, he did not hear much about Ningfan's great reputation, and he did not believe it either. Reign Immortal Monarch? He just has a good master who is a great cultivator from the ancient times. Unfortunately, that good master is going to die soon. Once ancient chaos dies, this little brat will be nothing. Ningfan's frown deepened. After staying silent for a while, he said, "Elder Xingyan, if you think that my Elder Token is fake, could my innate ghost mask also be fake? According to what I know, if there's a need to make a decision during a special situation, the young emperor of the Slaughter Palace seems to have a greater say than a mere vice palace master. If I'm the young emperor of the Slaughter Palace, a mere vice palace master won't be able to expel me." Ningfan waved his right hand, and the innate ghost mask gradually appeared. His black hair instantly turned silver. The Slaughter Palace respected the ghost mask. As soon as the innate ghost mask appeared, everyone at the scene could feel the aura of a superior being from Ningfan's body. Even Xingyan was no exception. Immortal King Punishment Flame could feel the ghost mask that he was wearing trembling. It was fear towards the young emperor's ghost mask. He had a bad feeling. The Vice Palace Master's plan was to make the Slaughter Palace lose its young emperor. Why is there still a young emperor in the Slaughter Palace? If that's the case, wouldn't all of the Vice Palace Master's plans be useless? On the other hand, the disciples of the Slaughter Palace at the side were extremely excited. Young Emperor Ghost Mask. It's true. Haha. It's really the young Emperor Ghost Mask. Since when did our Slaughter Palace have a young emperor? No wonder the Great Elder thinks so highly of the Reign Immortal Monarch. I didn't expect the Reign Immortal Monarch to have another identity. He's the young emperor of our palace. If the person who holds the innate ghost mask has the cultivation base of an immortal venerable, he will be the true young emperor. We, the disciples of the Slaughter Palace, greet the young emperor. The eyes of the few disciples under the ghost mask were filled with passion. The person who knelt in the starry sky was Ningfan. Even if they were facing the Great Elder, they would not kneel. However, if it was the young emperor, the future 8th slaying emperor, then it was an exception. There's no mistake. It was a ghost mask that contained the will of the first generation. It was a ghost mask that belonged solely to the Slaughter Palace. It was the innate ghost mask, the symbol of the young emperor of the Slaughter Palace. What was the thing that worried the cultivators of the Slaughter Palace the most? It was not that the seventh slaying emperor was nearing the end of his lifespan. It was because there was no eighth slaying emperor to succeed him after his death. 6 million years ago, Elder Fu Linglong, who had the highest chance of becoming the young emperor, died in an unknown place, causing the Slaughter Palace's lineage to be cut off. Countless cultivators of the Slaughter Palace were worried about their future. According to the tradition of the Slaughter Palace, every cultivator of the Slaughter Palace had the duty to hunt down young emperors to speed up their growth. However, this did not mean that the disciples of the Slaughter Palace did not respect the young emperors. On the contrary, the weight of a young emperor was countless times greater than the vice palace master or the great elder. Humph! You bunch of idiots! This young man's innate ghost mask is also fake. Can't you see it? This young man forged the ghost mask of a young emperor. His crime is punishable by death. Those who kneel to him are also guilty of the same crime. I will execute him. Immortal King Xingyan's eyes flashed with ferocity. He waved his hand and countless flames instantly burned the few disciples of the Slaughter Palace who were kneeling to Ning Fan into ashes. Then he waved his hand again. The sea of flames that sealed the starry sky instantly turned into thousands of fire dragons, rushing towards the black immortal cloud. He actually disregarded Ning Fan's identity as a young emperor and wanted to kill him on the spot. If Ning Fan was not a young emperor, Xingyan might have spared his life. However, since Ning Fan was a young emperor, any carelessness could ruin the vice palace master's plan. He would never allow Ning Fan to live. Ning Fan's eyes were filled with coldness. Even though the Slaughter Palace did not forbid the killing of their own disciples, Immortal King Xingyan's action of confusing the truth and killing a few disciples of the Slaughter Palace who were defenseless still aroused Ning Fan's dissatisfaction. Moreover, Xingyan actually tried to kill him. This matter had already crossed the bottom line of his tolerance. It made him feel a little uneasy. The sound of the wind in the Blood Sea Star region carried a kind of sorrow that ordinary people could not detect. It was like a whimper or a mournful melody. It turned into a heavenly sound and lingered in the starry sky. That kind of wind was called the sound of burial. It would only appear in the place where peerless experts had fallen. Ordinary people could not hear the sound of burial. It had nothing to do with one's cultivation base. What they needed was an extreme understanding of the Tao of divination. Moreover, not many grandmasters of the Tao of divination could hear the sound of burial. In the four heavens, there were only 2 or 3 people who could hear the sound of burial with their cultivation base of the Tao of divination. Even though Ning Fan had received guidance from Phoenix Emperor Chongming, he was just a beginner in the Tao of divination. With just his cultivation base of the Tao of divination, it was not enough for him to hear a profound heavenly sound like the sound of burial. However, he had another identity. He was a degenerate who had cultivated the divine spirit body that could communicate with all living things. He could hear the sound of all living things. As such, even if his cultivation base of the Tao of divination was not strong enough, he could still hear the sorrowful sound of burial that filled the starry sky. According to the ancient records, even if an 8th tribulation immortal emperor had fallen, they would rarely leave a sound of burial in the world. Why would there be a sound of burial in the current Blood Sea Star region? Could it be that something happened to Shadi? Could it be? Ning Fan's heart tightened. The more the other party tried to stop him, the more he felt that it was possible. I don't know why you and the Vice Palace Lord behind you kept trying to stop Ning Fan from saving people. If we can't reach the Slaughter Palace peacefully, I don't mind marching on the path of blood. Ning Fan raised his hand and the wind and fire fan appeared in his hand. He channeled his magic power into the fan like a tidal wave. In an instant, he fanned the thousands of fire dragons for tens of times. In just a few breaths, the thousands of fire dragons that immortal King Xingyan was proud of and the boundless sea of fire that filled the starry sky were all turned into ashes by Ning Fan. Using fire to fight fire, the result was a complete victory for the wind and fire fan. It's actually an innate magic treasure. How is this possible? Xingyan was shocked. He turned around and fled after transforming into his eternal true body. It was not because he was afraid of Ningfan but because he was afraid of Ningfan's innate magic treasure. He wanted to go back and find a few more accomplices to besiege Ningfan. That way his chances of winning would be higher. However, would Ningfan let him go? The answer was of course no. With a single point of his finger, Ningfan froze the giant bird that immortal King Xingyan had transformed into in the starry sky. After that, Ningfan waved his wind and fire cattail fan a few hundred times consecutively, turning immortal King Xingyan's ancient true body into ashes. Only his primordial spirit managed to escape from the ashes. However, Ningfan was just deliberately holding back. Xingyan was finally afraid. His entire primordial spirit was trembling. If he knew that Ningfan was so strong, he certainly would not have rashly used his killing intent against Ningfan. No matter what, he would have planned everything first before killing Ningfan. Previously, he did not believe that Ningfan had the strength to instantly kill an eternal immortal venerable like what the rumors said. However, the reality was that Ningfan's strength was much higher than what the rumors said. The evaluation of the people of the world towards him was actually too low. Was this the strength that an eternal immortal venerable could possess during the Dharma-ending era? Burning a third tribulation immortal king's eternal true body into ashes in just a single move. Even an eternal immortal venerable would not be able to do so. However, an eternal immortal venerable appeared in the Dharma-ending era. It was completely against the rules. After Sun Luo, another peerless devil lord was born in the eastern heaven. If this young man continues to grow, he would certainly become one of the leading figures in the Dharma-ending cultivation world. Great escape technique of myriad fire essence. Xingyan was terrified. His primordial spirit exploded into millions of sparks and fled in all directions in the starry sky. Ningfan did not even look at those sparks that were fleeing. His left eye flashed with a demonic light. At this moment, even ordinary illusion techniques became clear to him. He kept his wind fire fan and punched the hollow space beside him with his iron fist. Instantly, the hollow space cracked, and he grabbed a primordial spirit that was covered in blood from the crack. It was none other than Xingyan Immortal King. Xingyan's primordial spirit was tightly bound by the lightning prison rope. It did not even give him a chance to self-detonate. It's impossible. You actually saw through my illusion technique. And you even have a second innate magic treasure. Let me go. You can't kill me. Do you know who I am? If you kill me, the Calamity Clan will certainly not let you go. I'm the son of an elder of the Calamity Clan. You can't kill me. You can't. Xingyan's state of mind was in chaos and he roared. At this moment, his life and death were no longer under his control. He really spoke without thinking and even blurted out his biggest secret. Calamity Clan? Ningfan was startled. Then, his eyes flashed with cold light. As far as he knew, the Calamity Clan was a secret clan in the Southern Heaven immortal world. They seemed to be the archenemy of the Slaughter Palace. The reason why the current Sha Di was struggling to survive was to prevent the invasion of the Calamity Clan. This Xingyan is actually a spy that the Calamity Clan planted in the Slaughter Palace. Could it be that the reason why the so-called Slaughter Vice Palace forbade me from saving Sha Di is also because of the Calamity Clan? Seeing Ningfan's expression change as soon as he heard that he was a member of the Calamity Clan, Xingyan heaved a sigh of relief inwardly. He thought that Ningfan had probably been intimidated by the name of the Calamity Clan. Thinking about it, it made sense. A dark race was already enough to give him a hard time. If there's another member of the Calamity Clan, given how arrogant this young man was, he would probably have some scruples. To be honest, little friend, the 7th generation Sha Di has already been secretly eliminated by our Calamity Clan. The reason why the Vice Palace Lord stopped you from saving Sha Di is not because he was afraid that you will save him. After all, it's already impossible for him to do so. What he was afraid of is that you will open the Northern Dipper Blood Realm in advance, and let the disciples of the Slaughter Palace know about Sha Di's death. That would affect our great plan of slowly obtaining the sacred Heavenly Desolate Sword. How about this? As long as you let me go, I can put in a good word for you in front of the Calamity Clan. If the Calamity clan attacks the Slaughter Palace one day and slaughters all the cultivators of this palace, I can guarantee that you won't die. Shadi is really dead. Ningfan's heart was filled with bitterness. The reason why he risked his life to enter the Supreme Pill Sacred region and let the Black Devil clan become an adult was just to extend the lives of Ancient Chaos and Shadi. However, in the end, even though he managed to bring back the blood of an adult 9 raccoon, Ancient Chaos Great Emperor was still in a deep slumber for some unknown reason. As for Shadi, he had already fallen and he did not get to save him. Judging from Immortal King Xingyan's words, Shadi did not die because his life force was exhausted. Instead, he died because of the secret scheme of the Calamity clan. Xingyan and the other spies of the Calamity clan had been lurking in the Slaughter Palace for so many years. They were deeply trusted by Shadi. If these spies were to assassinate Shadi, the possibility of Shadi, who was already on the verge of death, would indeed be quite high. Being vigilant all day and night, it would be difficult to guard against a thief in one's own house. If Little Friend is willing to lend a hand to my Calamity clan and annihilate the Slaughter Palace, I am willing to ask the patriarch of my clan for a reward on your behalf. The Slaughter Palace is just a gathering place for a group of remnants of the Northern Dipper Alliance. Ants can't achieve great things. Even Ancient Chaos Great Emperor is just an undead spirit who is struggling at death's door. Only my Calamity clan can be Little Friend's indestructible support. I can give Little Friend another promise. If Little Friend joins my Calamity clan, the Eastern Heaven Dark clan will certainly not treat Little Friend as an enemy anymore. The reputation of the patriarch of my clan, Huado, is extremely resounding in the secret clan. Oh right, the patriarch of my clan is also very interested in Ancient Chaos Great Emperor. If Little Friend can obtain a trace of Ancient Chaos Great Emperor's soul and offer it to my patriarch for research. Xingyan still wanted to say something, but he was interrupted by Ningfan's cold laughter. Do you want me, Ningfan, to be ungrateful and betray my master and ancestors? If there are enough benefits, so what if I am ungrateful and betray my master and ancestors? Xingyan said disapprovingly. Benefits? Do you know what I am thinking right now? How could I possibly know what Little Friend is thinking? I was thinking, if the Shadi was really killed by your clan, then even if I killed my clan, it would be hard for me to avenge the Shadi. The Shadi was killed by his companions. How sorrowful he must have been before he died. What nonsense are you talking about? That's the Calamity clan. The Calamity clan. What are you doing? Stop. Stop right now. What he got in response was Ningfan's cold and merciless soul search, which turned him into an idiot. After that, Ningfan ruthlessly crushed Xingyan's primordial spirit. He did not even refine the 10,000 spirit blood. It was as if he could not vent the hatred in his heart if he did not kill this person. From Xingyan's memories, Ningfan saw the scenes where the spies of the Calamity clan plotted to murder Shadi. He saw the look of disbelief and anger in Shadi's eyes before he died. The burial song that filled the starry sky was really the burial song left behind by the Slayer. However, because of the Calamity race's series of schemes, Shadi's life token had not been broken yet. No one knew that Shadi, who had been guarding the Big Dipper blood domain alone, had already passed away. Shadi was dead. He did not die while guarding the Big Dipper blood world, but was poisoned by his comrade. His death was not worth it, not worth it. The Shadi is dead. What's the use of taking the black demon soul blood? Ningfan slowly closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they were cold and merciless. He was the 8th young emperor recognized by the 7th Slayer. It was his duty to avenge the 7th Slayer emperor. His elder Xingyan had been killed by the Rain Immortal Lord. That's a 3 Tribulation Immortal King. Innate Ghost Mask. Why does the Rain Lord have the young emperor's ghost mask? What's happening here? Should we attack the Rain Lord? Hurry up and send a message to the main hall. More and more disciples of the Slaughter Palace were attracted by the sky-piercing baleful qi that erupted from the death of Immortal King Xingyan. Ningfan did not want to be entangled with these ordinary disciples. At this moment, he only wanted to do one thing, and that was to find the culprit of this incident and perform a blood sacrifice in front of the grave of the Slayer Emperor. Ignoring the obstruction of the ordinary disciples, Ning Fan rode the dark immortal cloud and flew towards the slaughter star at full speed. Unfortunately, before he could go far, another two immortal venerables tore open the starry sky and walked out of it. Without saying a word, they attacked Ning Fan to kill him. They had already received the news of Xingyan's death, and also found out Ning Fan's identity as the young emperor. How could they let a mere young emperor ruin their plan, when they were about to succeed? Just two immortal venerables. How dare you block my way? You're courting death. Ning Fan's eyes flashed with mercilessness. He fanned his wind and fire fan, and instantly burned the physical bodies of the two immortal venerables into ashes. In the starry sky, the sky was filled with flames. Ning Fan accurately located the location of the two primordial spirits. Then, he pinned them down and skillfully knocked out their primordial spirits, capturing them alive. That's right. This time, Ning Fan decided to capture them alive. Just now he directly killed Xingyan out of anger. Now that he had calmed down a little, he decided to capture these traitors and bring them to the tomb of Sha Di to be killed. According to immortal King Xingyan's memories, these two people were also one of the accomplices who plotted against Sha Di. He must not let them go. The slaughter star arrived in the blink of an eye. Just as Ning Fan approached it, a sigh finally resounded from the slaughter star. Ning Fan, even though you're the young emperor of my palace, it's indeed a little too much for you to injure three immortal venerables in a row. You should stop now. A white-haired young man soared into the sky from the slaughter star with a pained expression. He stood in the starry sky and blocked Ning Fan's path. He was the immortal king of the Nether Sea, the great elder of the Slaughter Palace. Even though he already knew that Ning Fan was a domineering person, he did not expect that Ning Fan would disregard Sha Di's kindness and start a massacre in the Slaughter Palace. Did he misjudge Ning Fan? This young man has really disappointed me. Ning Fan smiled. That smile actually contained a kind of indescribable sorrow. Sha Di was already dead, but his disciples did not know about his death. Moreover, some of them even stopped him and questioned him in order to protect his accomplices. The seventh Sha Di is already dead. Today, I'm going to clean up the sect for him. I hope Great Elder won't stop me. Ning Fan, what nonsense are you spouting? What do you mean by the seventh Sha Di is already dead? You can't simply say such disgraceful words. Ming Hai was shocked. At the same time, an unbridled laughter resounded from the slaughter star. Then the starry sky shook. An elderly man in blood-red robes who carried a giant sword on his back slowly appeared in the starry sky. Behind him were 10 to 20 of his loyal subordinates and the eternal puppet of Sha Di. Ming Hai, you're really an idiot. Even this little kid knows that the seventh Sha Di is already dead. How could you still be kept in the dark by me? Huh? Is there anyone more stupid than you in this world? Amidst the laughter, the elderly man patted his storage pouch and took out a bloody head. It was the head of Sha Di. His eyes were still filled with unwillingness and anger. Before dealing with the sacred slaughterer Tian Huang, I originally wanted to let all of you live for a few more years. Unfortunately, my plan has to be brought forward because of the intervention of this little kid. If that's the case, I, as the deputy palace master of the Slaughter clan and the 19th young emperor of the Calamity clan, declare, from today onwards, the Slaughter Palace will be erased from the eastern heaven. Those who follow me will be spared from death. Those who go against me will be killed without mercy. As soon as the elderly man finished his words, his loyal subordinates and puppets immediately spread out in all directions. They killed anyone they saw. In an instant, many disciples of the Slaughter Palace were killed because they were caught off guard. Ming Hai's eyes widened in anger. If he still didn't know what had happened at this moment, then his cultivation base in this life would really be in vain. Shui Chongkong, the palace master treated you like his own son. How could you have the heart to betray him? I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you. You? In the eastern heaven immortal world. Who can stop me without an immortal emperor? Shui Chongkong harumphed disdainfully. He kept Sha Di's head and rushed towards Ming Hai. He didn't even use his giant sword. Just a few divine abilities were enough to injure Ming Hai. The difference in strength was obvious. As the strongest expert of the Slaughter Palace, Ming Hai was no match for Xue Chongkong. There was almost no one below the immortal emperor realm who could fight against Xue Chongkong. The slaughter palace was in danger. Xue Chongkong laughed out loud. Just as he was about to chase after the Nether Sea, a figure in white suddenly appeared in front of him. The figure pressed down with his hand and directly destroyed the divine arts that he had thrown at the Nether Sea. He was unscathed after taking the attack of a quasi-emperor with his physical body. Your opponent is me. Boom! Without any hesitation, Ning Fan's first punch was the unreasonable ancient devil mountain breaking strike. It was filled with anger and killing intent. It directly broke Xue Chongkong's defense and sent him flying a great distance away. Along the way, he crashed into countless abandoned stars. Xue Chongkong, who was initially arrogant, struggled to stabilize his body. Only then did he spurt out a mouthful of blood which contained pieces of his internal organs. It was imaginable how much damage Ning Fan's punch had done to him. He was already lightly injured. Xue Chongkong's eyes widened in disbelief at the scene before him. A dignified quasi-emperor like him was actually injured by an immortal venerable, with just a punch. A mere immortal venerable of 10,000 ancient times could actually injure me with just a punch. How is this possible? The plan that was originally in the bag finally had a bad feeling because of Ning Fan's appearance. No wonder the clan said that the slaughter palace's luck had yet to run out, and it wasn't suitable for them to act for the time being. So that's why. Everyone had guessed wrongly. The luck of the slaughter palace didn't fall on the 7th generation. Instead, it fell on this ignorant brat. As long as this ignorant brat doesn't die, the luck of the slaughter palace would continue. Junior, don't be arrogant. Do you think you can be arrogant just because you gained the upper hand with a single punch? I've fought against a real 6th tribulation immortal emperor for 3 days and 3 nights. How can you be my opponent? I've killed a 6th tribulation immortal emperor before. Nonsense. You only know how to talk fast. That's not your true ability. Fine, I'll kill you with the ancient imperial sword right now. Otherwise, you'll think that a dignified quasi-emperor is only at this level. Xue Chongkong harumphed coldly and untied the giant sword on his back. As soon as the seal was removed, a world-shaking sword pressure instantly spread across the starry sky. This sword was a genuine innate magic treasure. All the disciples of the slaughter palace who felt the sword pressure were shocked. Because everyone knew how decisive the existence of an innate magic treasure was to the victory of those below the immortal emperor realm. No matter how strong Rainlord's fist was, could it be stronger than an innate magic treasure? Chapter 1093. Seeing that everyone was suppressed by the ancient imperial sword, Xue Chongkong burst into laughter. His confidence skyrocketed and the gloominess in his heart that was injured by Ning Fan's punch was swept away. The body of the ancient imperial sword was engraved with mysterious patterns. It was wrinkled and undulating like the bark of a tree. Its immortal chi was overwhelming. As the giant sword was swung, the shadows of countless ancient buildings appeared in the starry sky. Those ancient buildings emitted a supreme aura force that made people want to worship it uncontrollably. It was extremely strange. Many old monsters of the slaughter palace who recognized the sword had a drastic change in expression. They cried out involuntarily. This sword is actually forged from the ruins of the ancient heavenly court's 5 buildings and 12 pavilions. It contains real immortal spiritual power. I'm afraid it's much more powerful than ordinary innate magical treasures. Xue Chongkong swung the giant sword and a massive sword chi rushed out like a white dragon. The dazzling sword light made everyone unable to open their eyes. The sword light was too fast. It seemed to have reached the end of the starry sky in an instant, and was about to fall on Ning Fan. Countless people's eyes were focused on the ancient imperial sword. They were shocked by the unparalleled aura force of the sword. Xue Chongkong's cultivation base was already stronger than the immortal King Nether Sea. He could be considered as one of the top experts among the quasi-emperors. Now that he used the innate magical treasure sword to attack, it was almost as powerful as an immortal emperor's attack. No one thought that Ning Fan could withstand the attack of the sword. Not even the immortal King Nether Sea was an exception. Ming Hai's expression was as heavy as steel, as if he was facing a formidable enemy. Just as he was about to help Ning Fan from the side, Ning Fan raised his hand and stopped him. Great Elder, quickly go and quell the rebellion in the palace to prevent the disciples from suffering too many losses. Leave this person to me. Ning Fan's tone carried the calmness of someone who had been through many trials and tribulations. To ordinary cultivators of the Eastern Heaven, a quasi-emperor was already a supreme existence. However, to him, a quasi-emperor was no longer a formidable enemy. As he spoke, Ning Fan raised his other hand to the sky and took out a black kasaya. As soon as the monastic robe appeared, the surroundings were immediately swept up by demonic winds. As for the monastic robe, it grew in size amidst the demonic winds, completely enveloping the attack that Xue Changkong had unleashed with all his might. Then it wrapped itself around the monastic robe, completely sealing off the attack and preventing it from leaking out. This item was none other than the Black Mountain Bear ancestral kasaya that Ning Fan rarely used. He had seized it from Great Emperor Tian. It was a magic treasure that could be used for both offense and defense. It could be worn as a protective armor, or as a magic treasure that could control the heavens and earth. Countless people were so shocked that they could not close their mouths. Ning Fan had easily blocked Xue Changkong's attack. This kid actually has a Khanate magic treasure as well. Moreover, it seems as if he didn't expend much energy to receive Xue Changkong's attack. The Nether Sea Immortal Monarch was shocked. Then, his expression changed to one of guilt and admiration. His expression was extremely complicated. After witnessing Ning Fan's strength, the Nethersea Immortal Monarch knew that Ning Fan was the only one on his side who could fight Xue Changkong on equal footing. Only the young emperor could protect the Slaughter Palace and the descendants of the Northern Dipper sect. If that's the case, I'll have to trouble the young emperor to hold him back for a while. After I kill the rest of the rebels, I'll come and help the young emperor to kill the traitor Xue Changkong to avenge the palace lord. Go. Kill all the rebels this time. Leave their primordial spirits behind. I want to offer them as a blood sacrifice. Understood. Addressing himself as a subordinate meant that the Nethersea Immortal Monarch had truly acknowledged Ning Fan's identity as the 8th young emperor. Only a few years had passed. The young man who was still at the first step in the past had now become the only hope of the Slaughter Palace. While speaking, Ning Fan was still unhurriedly dealing with Xue Changkong's attacks. On the surface, he seemed to be able to deal with Xue Changkong's attacks with ease. However, every time he blocked Xue Changkong's attack, he would need to consume a large amount of magic power. It was not an easy task to forcefully block his opponent's attacks. It was not difficult to dodge the attacks, as it would save a lot of magic power. However, if he only focused on dodging and allowed the attacks to spread in all directions, many of the other disciples of the Slaughter Palace would be killed by the aftershocks. At this moment, he kept his ghost face and dark immortal cloud. Only his white robes were left floating in the starry sky. His expression was like a piece of ice that would never melt. The God-exterminating shield could not be used for the time being. In that case, it would not be easy to kill a quasi-emperor. As Ning Fan's eyes sharpened, rain suddenly fell from the starry sky. The raindrops formed a path of stars. Ning Fan stepped on the path of rain, approaching Xue Changkong step by step. Every step he took was filled with unimaginable baleful qi and devil intent. Xue Changkong's heart could not help but race. His body instinctively felt uneasy when he saw Ning Fan approaching him. He swung his giant sword even faster, slashing at Ning Fan one after another. However, all of his attacks were blocked by the ancestral bear Kasaya. What made him uneasy was that Ning Fan also had an innate magical treasure which allowed him to block his ancient K sword slash with ease. Another thing was that the baleful qi on Ning Fan's body was extremely heavy. It was something that he had never seen before in his life. One should know that even the notorious immortal emperors might not necessarily have such a level of baleful qi. In order to strengthen the baleful aura to such a degree, just killing people was not enough. One had to kill immortal emperors. I've killed a 6th tribulation immortal emperor before. Xue Changkong suddenly recalled Ning Fan's words and his heart shuddered. Previously, Xue Changkong had only treated those words as a joke, and he had not taken them seriously. However, at this moment he began to take them seriously. His body's instincts told him that Ning Fan was very likely a dangerous being who was comparable to an ancient immortal venerable. Perhaps Ning Fan had really killed an immortal emperor before. Otherwise, why would he feel a chill when facing Ning Fan's baleful qi? However, his rationality told him that Ning Fan was just an ancient immortal venerate. Killing an immortal emperor was just nonsense. What was an immortal emperor? An immortal emperor was a peak existence during the Age of Chaos. It was the lifelong pursuit of countless second-step immortal cultivators. It was an unattainable dream. How could an immortal venerable kill an immortal emperor? A bunch of nonsense. That's right. That's right. This baleful qi must have been faked using an extremely mysterious method. That must be it. What a cunning child. You actually faked your baleful qi to scare me. Do you think I will believe you? Do you think I will be afraid of you because of this? However, I didn't expect you to also have an innate magic treasure. No wonder even Xing Yan was defeated by you. I shouldn't underestimate you. Unfortunately, you don't know that there are differences in strength between low-grade innate magic treasures. Your magic treasure might be able to block my ordinary slashes, but if I use the true power of this sword, killing you will be as easy as flipping my palm. Do you know that the ancestors of all cultivators have a common name called immortal spirit? Shui Changkong sneered. He used a sword technique that was personally taught to him by the clan leader of the Disaster Clan. He activated the immortal spirit power contained in the ancient imperial sword bit by bit. His entire body was enshrouded in immortal qi, making him look like an ancient immortal with an indomitable aura. First came the divine spirit, then came the immortal spirit. Once the path to immortality is opened, the incense will continue. This was a sentence recorded in the top-secret dossier of the Disaster Clan. Shui Changkong did not understand its specific meaning. He only vaguely knew that there was a kind of power in this world called immortal spirit power. It was the ultimate power that only ancient immortal spirits could possess. It was a power that cultivators could not grasp. It was even harder to fathom than the power of heaven and earth and the power of the great Tao. The ancient imperial sword shot out countless immortal qi. As the immortal qi trembled, the starry sky drizzle that was attracted by Ning Fan became motionless. The giant sword then pointed at Ning Fan. Billions of tiny light rays flew out from the body of the sword. Those were sword shadows that were as small as the hair of a cow. They were condensed from the legendary immortal spirit power. Billions of tiny light rays fell like a rainstorm of pear blossoms, sweeping across the starry sky. When they broke through the air, they let out ear-piercing cries of thousands of birds and shot towards Ning Fan. Some of the disciples of the Slaughter Palace did not manage to dodge in time, and were struck by some of the tiny immortal spirit swords. Their bodies instantly turned into stone and died. The way they died was extremely strange. It was as if their blood essence and cultivation base had been completely devoured by the tiny immortal spirit swords. Ning Fan's eyes narrowed. He tried to use his ancestral bear Kasaya to collect those tiny immortal spirit swords. However, he only managed to collect 30% of them. The remaining 70% of them broke through the defense of the Kasaya and approached him with unstoppable momentum. Ning Fan's expression turned solemn. He took out a shabby palm leaf fan and activated his ability. He fanned the fan a few hundred times at the rainstorm of sword needles. Another 30% of the sword needles were burned into ashes by the blazing flames. However, there were still 40% of them that did not lose their momentum. They rushed to within 1,000 zhang of him, giving him a sense of danger. Currently, he had yet to repair the god-exterminating shield. If these sword needles come close to his body, he would more or less be injured. Of course, it would not be fatal. After all, the strength of a derelict divine spirit body was undeniable. Besides, he had a feeling that the immortal spirit power of these tiny immortal spirit swords was somewhat similar to the divine spirit power that was gushing out of his body. However, it was somewhat different. What a powerful ancient imperial sword. Even 2 innate magical treasures could not withstand its full power. But what if I have 3 innate magical treasures? Under Shui Changkong's shocked gaze, Ning Fan took out the 3rd innate magical treasure, the divine lightning mirror. This treasure was the most powerful one among all of Ning Fan's low-grade innate magical treasures. When the mirror shone on the remaining 40% of the tiny immortal spirit swords, all of them were destroyed by the lightning, and the attack completely dissipated. Ning Fan changed his hand seal again. Another divine lightning as thick as a bowl shot out from the mirror. It instantly reached 3 chi above Xue Changkong's head. Xue Changkong was shocked. He instinctively used the ancient imperial sword to block it. Even though he managed to block most of the lightning power, his ghost face was still destroyed, revealing his true appearance. He was an old man with white hair and a youthful complexion. His hair bun was also loosened. His disheveled appearance made him look a little disheveled. His expression became even more gloomy. This young man actually has 3 innate magical treasures. Moreover, this ancient realm magical treasure doesn't seem to be any weaker than the ancient imperial sword. Where did this young man get so many magical treasures? If you say that they were given to him by ancient chaos, I definitely won't believe it. Xue Changkong was not the only one who knew about this. Everyone in the world knew that ancient chaos had died with only a trace of an illusion left. He did not keep any of his supreme treasures with him when he was alive. How could he possibly give them to Ning Fan? However, Xue Changkong would definitely not believe that Ning Fan collected these magic treasures with his own strength and not given to him by anyone. This young man has 3 innate magical treasures. It won't be easy for me to kill him. I don't need to hold back anymore. Xue Changkong suddenly opened his mouth and spat out a ray of golden light. It was actually a golden nematode. That nematode lived in his body and cultivated together with his life. It was extremely powerful. He was not the only one. Most of the cultivators of the Calamity clan would raise nematodes in their bodies. Most of the nematodes were different. This golden nematode had 2 heads on both sides. One of them was female while the other was male. As soon as it appeared, it grew in the wind and turned into a gigantic beast that occupied the starry sky. Its mouth was shaped like a suction cup. When it breathed, it could even suck the great Tao into its stomach. Its cultivation base was at the 5 Tribulations immortal realm. However, the strangeness of this nematode gave Ning Fan a feeling that it was much harder to deal with compared to ordinary 5 Tribulation immortal kings. You can't defeat me alone, so you asked for help, huh? Ning Fan said expressionlessly. Xue Changkong's face turned red. He felt extremely embarrassed. His cultivation base was much higher than Ning Fan's. It was indeed a little embarrassing for him to need help to defeat Ning Fan. Losing face once or 10 times is still the same. Since he had already summoned the nematode in his body, it wouldn't matter if he summons other worms too. Today he must kill Ning Fan no matter what to accomplish his plan. Xue Changkong spat out hundreds of parasites from his body. It seemed like parasitic spiritual worms were his favorite. These parasites were at least at the thought fragmentation realm. There were more than 10 of them at the immortal venerable realm, and 2 more at the immortal king realm. As Xue Changkong gave an order, all of the parasites attacked Ning Fan. As for himself, he activated the immortal spiritual power of the ancient imperial sword again, and slashed out billions of tiny immortal spiritual swords at Ning Fan. Ning Fan patted his storage pouch and a few treasures flew out. His expression did not change at all. He was not afraid at all even though he was surrounded by hundreds of parasites. In the past, when he fought against unparalleled existences, the strategy he chose was to use the God Exterminating Shield to defend himself. He wanted to be undefeatable, and then look for an opportunity to win. Now that the God Exterminating Shield was damaged, he changed his strategy. He directly used his many innate magical treasures to launch a fierce attack. Even if he summoned 4 to 5 quasi-emperor realm parasites, Ning Fan was confident that he could kill all of them with his fierce attacks, let alone the fact that the parasites that Xue Changkong summoned were only at the 5 Tribulation immortal king realm. As soon as the divine lightning mirror shone with lightning, the billions of tiny immortal spiritual swords were all shattered by the lightning. The unique feature of this mirror was that everything that it could see was included in the list of attacks. Naturally, it would not miss anything. As the poisonous smoke from the 5 venom banner rose, the gigantic parasites turned into pus and blood within the poisonous smoke. The wind fire fan burned everywhere while the 5 Tribulation immortal king realm parasites died. As soon as the lightning prison rope tied them up, The 5 Tribulation Immortal King Realm parasite with the highest cultivation base was already tied up and turned into ashes by the 5 Tribulation Immortal King Realm. The Black Mountain Bear ancestral Kasaya wrapped itself around countless parasites. Then, it shook it and countless insect bones and ashes fell to the ground. Those who entered it died. Xue Chongkong coughed out blood continuously. He could not believe the scene in front of him. Ningfan only used the divine lightning mirror to completely suppress his ancient imperial sword. Then he used even more innate magical treasures and killed all the parasites that he had painstakingly cultivated for many years at lightning speed. In order to cultivate those parasites to such a high cultivation base, one must cultivate together with their lives. When the host dies, the parasites die. When the parasites die, the host will be injured. Every time a parasite was killed, he would be injured because of the connection between their minds. The higher the cultivation base of the parasite that died, the greater the damage he would suffer. Ningfan only used around 10 breaths to kill all of his parasites. The price for the death of the parasites was that Xue Chongkong's body was already severely injured due to the backlash. The price he had to pay was definitely huge. How is this possible? How is this possible? Ningfan only used around 10 breaths to kill all of his spiritual worms. Ningfan actually used 6 innate magical treasures at the same time. How could the Doomsday Immortal Venerable have so many treasures? This is impossible. Absolutely impossible. One had to know that the proudest thing in Xue Chongkong's life was that he already possessed an innate magical treasure before he truly stepped into the Immortal Emperor realm. Even for a clan as strong as the Calamity clan, not everyone was qualified to obtain innate magical treasures. He was not the only young emperor of the Calamity clan. In fact, he was just a young emperor who was ranked 19th among the Calamity clan. Besides, he was not an immortal emperor. Originally, he did not have the qualifications to be bestowed innate magical treasures by the clan. Thus, he gave up his comfortable life in the clan and risked his life to accept the mission. Then he lurked in the slaughter palace and wreaked havoc in secret. As a result, he was rewarded with the ancient imperial sword. The clan leader had even promised in front of countless clan members that if he, Xue Chongkong, could complete the mission and secretly seize the sacred heavenly desolate sword, he would be promoted from the 19th young emperor to the 4th young emperor on the day he returns. He would also be rewarded with a second innate magical treasure. Resources were limited in the Age of Chaos. How could there be so many materials to forge innate magical treasures? Even the immortal emperors would rarely have 2 innate magical treasures. To him, 2 innate magical treasures was just an unattainable dream. However, what did Ningfan do to have 6 innate magical treasures? This matter had shaken his pride as the young emperor of the Calamity clan a little. He felt that it was unfair and his sense of superiority had completely vanished. Ningfan naturally would not let go of the moment when Xue Chongkong was distracted. You're distracted. Ningfan's voice traveled along the path of rain in the starry sky and reached Xue Chongkong's ears. However, Ningfan's figure had completely vanished from the starry sky without him noticing. Xue Chongkong's heart skipped a beat. To his horror, he realized that the starry sky around him was dead silent. Not only could he not find Ningfan's figure, but he also could not see any of the disciples of the Slaughter Palace. The starry sky was empty. There was not a single person or star in sight. Not even the main star of the Slaughter Star could be seen. He was the only one left in the lonely starry sky. His body was slowly melting into a puddle of blood for some unknown reason, giving off a putrid smell. Not good. It's an illusion technique. Release. Xue Chongkong circulated the magic power in his body, and his eyes regained their clarity. The illusory scenery around him disappeared. He was still standing on the starry sky battlefield. The only difference was that his entire body was being tied up like a dumpling by the lightning prison rope. His magic power began to be sealed. He wanted to struggle, but he could not break free at all. Then, the terrifying poisonous smoke of the 24 poisonous banners blew over. The lightning fire of the 5 lightning annihilation barrier shot out from the barrier. The lightning light of the divine lightning mirror shot out. The smoke of the wind fire fan blew over. The attacks of the innate magic treasures landed on Xue Changkong, who was defenseless, causing his injuries to worsen. Xue Changkong was a dignified quasi-emperor. Even if he was not an expert in body refinement, his physical body was certainly not weak. Unfortunately, when his magic power was sealed, it was impossible for him to withstand the joint attacks of the many innate magic treasures. Very soon, he was on the verge of death. His breathing was weak, and he was only breathing out. All the disciples of the Slaughter Palace were speechless. No one expected that the battle between Ning Fan and Xue Changkong would be so one-sided. Ning Fan was too strong. He actually had 6 innate magic treasures in his hands. Those who were not immortal emperors were not Ning Fan's match at all. They could only be suppressed and bullied by Ning Fan. I don't accept this. I don't accept this. You are just relying on having a lot of magic treasures. If it's a fair battle, you are definitely not my match. Xue Changkong's voice was like a gossamer. He gritted his teeth and said unwillingly. He did not beg for mercy but only sneered. Unfortunately, an enemy was an enemy. No matter how tough he was, he would not let him go. The Tao is unfair. The fairness that you mentioned never existed in the past, and it will never exist in the future. With a flash of red light, Ning Fan appeared in front of Xue Changkong and stopped all the innate experts' attacks. He formed a series of hand seals with both of his hands, and the heaven-seizing imprint was instantly formed. Then he pressed it on the top of Xue Changkong's head, causing his dying physical body to explode into blood mist. Then he extracted Xue Changkong's unconscious primordial spirit from the blood mist. He was not in a hurry to kill it. Instead, he sealed it and imprisoned it. Ning Fan's plan was to bring all the traitors' primordial spirits to the tomb of Sha Di as a blood sacrifice. Since he had won the battle, he kept all the innate magic treasures. Then his eyes swept across the surroundings indifferently. He realized that the other traitors in the surroundings had already been killed by the immortal king of the Nether Sea and the others. There were no longer any battles in the starry sky. There were only chaotic Tao laws that were intertwining with one another, telling the story of the rebellion that had happened in this place. Only Ning Fan could hear the sound of burial, telling the story of Sha Di's death. Wherever Ning Fan's gaze landed, all the disciples of the Slaughter Palace were either filled with fanaticism or reverence, not daring to look at Ning Fan directly. Of course, there were also many people who had mixed feelings of joy and sorrow on their faces. The fact that Ning Fan was a young emperor had already spread far and wide. It was a tragedy for them to lose the 7th Sha Di. It was a joy for them to obtain the 8th young emperor. A generation had passed away and a new one had arrived. Their 8th young emperor was very famous and strong. By following him, they could try to fight for a future for the Slaughter Palace. Master, Little 8 has done a good deed. Look, these are the primordial spirits of the traitors that Little 8 captured alive. There are 3 of them. It was Old Wu's smiling face that looked like he was presenting a treasure. I've captured 4 primordial spirits. Hee. My credit is even greater. It was Zhu Er who was competing with Old Wu to claim credit. Woof woof woof. Crow Heavenly Dog also spat out 2 unconscious primordial spirits from his stomach and offered them to Ning Fan. The other traitors were basically killed directly. These were the only ones who had their primordial spirits captured. Old Wu, Zhu Er and Crow Heavenly Dog began to fight in front of Ning Fan, because of a disagreement. It was a very funny scene, but Ning Fan just could not bring himself to laugh. He did not care about the 3 of them. He just sighed and kept the primordial spirits captured by his 3 servants. Then, he silently flew to the side of the immortal king of the Nether Sea and said, I want to go to the Northern Dipper Blood World and open it up. Yes. It was the immortal king of the Nether Sea, and all the surviving cultivators of the Slaughter Palace who answered respectfully. So what if they won? So what if they defended the Slaughter Palace? Sha Di was still dead in the end. When Ning Fan reopened the Northern Dipper Blood World and entered the Inner Star Palace. When Ning Fan found the headless corpse of Sha Di, he had no choice but to accept the reality. It was a mutilated corpse that did not fall even after death. Its head was cut off, and its primordial spirit had died inside its body after exhausting its remaining strength. If it wasn't for the fact that Sha Di's remaining life force was too little, He certainly would not have died even if Xue Changkong and the other traitors ambushed him. The surroundings were filled with the ancient puppets that had perished together with Sha Di. When Sha Di died, these puppets would also perish. Sha Di did not have much time left in the first place. How sad it was for a hero to be assassinated by a traitor, who was already past his prime. It was precisely because Ning Fan was worried about Sha Di's remaining life force that he had not used up all of Sha Di's jade slips until today. He was afraid that he would consume Sha Di's remaining life force. In the future, he might not have the chance to use it anymore. Senior, I'm back. You once gave me 2,000 years to grow. But now, it seems like I don't have that much time to slowly take over the Slaughter Palace. However, there's one thing that I can't figure out. You once said that the day you die will be the day the enemies invade us. You should have been dead for a long time. If it wasn't because I insisted on opening the Northern Dipper Blood World to save you, I'm afraid that the news of your death would still be concealed. I don't understand why the Calamity Clan did not immediately invade us after your death. Instead, they allowed Xue Changkong and the other scoundrels to continue lurking in the Slaughter Palace and act in the dark. Why is that? I know that there's actually a peerless divine sword in the Slaughter Palace. It's called the Northern Dipper Mortal Calamity, Sacred Desolate Heavenly Slaughter. Xue Changkong and the others seem to be doing something to this sword. Only when they achieve their goal, will the Calamity Clan dare to invade us. Or perhaps the 2,000 years that Senior mentioned in the past is not just referring to my remaining lifespan, but also some kind of deduction related to this sword. Ning Fan let out a long sigh when he thought of this. There were too many questions in his mind. Unfortunately, there was no longer any Sha Di who could answer them for him. The specific details of the invasion of the Calamity Clan and the existence of the sacred desolate heavenly slaughter sword were unknown even to the great elders like the Nethersea Immortal King. Perhaps, Sha Di's original intention was to wait for Ning Fan to grow to a certain extent before telling him everything. Unfortunately, there was no one who could answer Ning Fan's doubts. Young Lord, the Slaughter Palace cannot be without a leader for a single day. The 7th generation has passed away. It's time for you to take over the position of the 8th generation and take charge of the overall situation. In the past, you needed to hide behind others because you have yet to mature. Now, you are already invincible below the immortal Emperor realm. I'm afraid you can even put up a fight against a 6th Tribulation Immortal Emperor. There is nothing wrong with taking over the position of the 8th generation Sha Di. No one would dare to disobey you. Behind him, the Nethersea Immortal King knelt on the ground. As a dignified quasi-emperor, he would not kneel to anyone. Only the substitute Sha Di was worthy of such a grand gesture from him. In his heart, he had already treated Ning Fan as the next Sha Di. Let's bury the 7th generation first. Ning Fan sighed and helped Ming Hai up. The reason why an expert like Ming Hai knelt to him was because of his recognition and respect towards his identity as a young emperor. It was also out of his loyalty to the Slaughter Palace. Similarly, he would not let an existence like Ming Hai kneel to him casually out of respect. In fact, Ning Fan did not have a strong sense of belonging to the Slaughter Palace. After all, he was different from Ming Hai, who was an old man who was loyal to the Slaughter Palace. His actions were just to fulfill a promise he had made in the past. That was all. What about after that? After that, we will keep the news of the 7th generation's death a secret. Many people already know about this. I'm afraid we won't be able to keep it a secret. Ming Hai said awkwardly. We just need to order our disciples to keep their mouths shut. It doesn't matter even if this matter spreads out in the end. I just don't want too many people to know that Sha Di was murdered by a traitor. His illustrious reputation will be ruined. I know what you're worried about. You should know about the hostility of the Calamity Clan towards the Slaughter Palace, right? I know a little about it. However, I didn't know that the secret clan that was plotting against the Slaughter Palace was actually the Calamity Clan. This time I finally figured it out. Ming Hai said with embarrassment. Even the Calamity Clan did not annihilate the Slaughter Palace immediately after the death of the 7th generation. It must be because they have some scruples. Which other immortal emperors would dare to do something that even the Calamity Clan doesn't dare to do? I'm guessing that the Calamity Clan is not the only force that is plotting against the sacred heavenly sword in the Eastern Heaven and the Four Heavens. The Slaughter Palace is still here now. It will still exist for a long time in the future. They will only act when they think that the time is right. The sacred heavenly sword. Young Lord, are you referring to the ancient sword that was sealed in the blood prison? Is this sword really that powerful? It can even make the secret clan wary of it? I didn't know about this before. Ming Hai was shocked. I'm just guessing. Everything is just a guess. Young Lord, aren't you going to inherit the position of the 8th generation Shadi immediately? You should know that there are great benefits for anyone who succeeds the position of Shadi. Oh, it's my first time hearing that there are benefits to succeeding the position of Shadi. Can Great Elder tell me more about it? Ning Fan's original intention was to hide the news of Shadi's death, and then pretend to leave the Slaughter Palace. Due to some kind of fear, even the powerful Calamity Clan would not dare to act against the Slaughter Palace for the time being. However, one day, those people would definitely make their move. In order to have enough strength to protect the Slaughter Palace before that day arrives, Ning Fan could not possibly stay and guard the Slaughter Palace. He must leave this place. He must seek for opportunities to continuously improve his cultivation base and obtain a powerful cultivation base that would allow him to fight against the secret clan. In order to fulfill the promise he made in the past, Ning Fan was willing to bear the responsibility of protecting the Slaughter Palace. As for the empty title of Shadi, he was very indifferent to it. If he was still very weak, perhaps he would value the position of Shadi. After all, as Shadi, he could mobilize all the forces of the Slaughter Palace to protect him. However, does the current him really need the subordinates of the Slaughter Palace to protect him? There's no need. There's no need for that anymore. Moreover, in Ning Fan's eyes, there was no difference between the title of the 8th generation Killing Emperor and the title of the 8th generation Young Emperor of the Slaughter Palace. Neither of them could scare a true expert. If the difference was not big, what was the point of succession? In any case, whether he succeeded or not, he would protect the slaughter hall and fulfill his promise. However, if there are other benefits to inheriting the position of Shadi, then Ning Fan would have to think carefully about whether or not he should inherit the position. As for the specifics, it would depend on whether the benefits of succeeding as the Slayer could move him. Otherwise, he would not bother to do so. Ming Hai took out an ancient jade slip and handed it to Ning Fan respectfully. This jade scroll had been passed down from generation to generation by the Great Elders. 47 generations of Great Elders had passed down to Ming Hai. The lifespan of the Great Elders was far less than that of the Shadi. Naturally, there were many more generations. Ning Fan's spirit sense went into the jade slip. At first he was calm, but soon he was surprised. Inheriting the title of Shadi is actually beneficial to the improvement of my strength. In that case, I can directly inherit the title of the 8th Shadi. What's the harm? The look in Ning Fan's eyes gradually turned resolute. The past cannot be remonstrated, and the future can still be pursued. It was meaningless to keep lamenting the tragedy of the 7th generation. It was time for him to fulfill his promise and repay the 7th generation. If that's the case, I will now give the order to arrange young Lord's Emperor conferring ceremony. From today onwards, the millions of cultivators of the Slaughter Hall and the Northern Dipper Blood World will be loyal to young Lord. We will take the responsibility of protecting the Blood World and the Slaughter Hall. I am willing to make a Tao oath to show my loyalty. As long as young Lord does not betray the Slaughter Hall in this life, I, Ming Hai, am willing to go through fire and water for young Lord for generations. Go through fire and water for generations for me? There's no need for that. You just need to wholeheartedly protect the Slaughter Hall and never change your mind. That will be enough. Ning Fan smiled. Ming Hai bowed deeply and lowered his head. His eyes were filled with reminiscence. He remembered the Tao oath that he made in that year, and that month which was almost the same as today. That year, he was still young. He was just a young mortal who wholeheartedly sought to become an immortal. On a certain cultivation planet, he met the 7th Shadi by chance. Taoist priest, please accept me as your disciple. I also want to cultivate the Tao. I want to be an immortal who can live for 100 years. I'm not a Taoist priest. What I seek is not the Tao. Besides, I don't accept disciples. The seventh Sha Di replied in a somewhat speechless manner. Taoist priest, you're really heartless. How about this? As long as you accept me as your disciple and bring me to seek immortality, I, your little disciple, Hai Ming, am willing to go through fire and water for you for 10 generations. How about this? Go through fire and water? Interesting. However, I don't need you to go through fire and water for me. Of course, if you can really fulfill your promise, it's not impossible for me to give you an immortal fate. However, I still won't accept you as my disciple. The slaughter hall is very strict when it comes to accepting disciples. You must personally come to the slaughter planet and stand out in the trial. Only then will you be qualified to become a disciple of the slaughter hall. Amidst the gratified laughter, the seventh Sha Di left on a long rainbow, leaving the young Ming Hai alone to stare at the vast sky in envy. At that time, he still did not know what the slaughter hall was. Back then, he didn't know how vast the world of immortals was. He stared at the sky in a daze. It was a long time after the seventh slaying emperor had left that he regained his senses. When he regained his senses, he discovered that a book had appeared on the ground in front of him. A very ordinary cultivation technique that recorded all kinds of methods for mortals to open their meridians. A bottle of very ordinary elixirs that could help cultivators open their meridians. The overjoyed youngster, Ming Hai, excitedly found a deserted place and began to consume elixirs to cultivate. After that, he stepped into the cultivation world and fought his way through. Step by step, he broke through the void and flew away from this cultivation planet. Step by step, he reached the second step of the life immortal realm. He swept through his peers and joined the slaughter hall as an outsider. Step by step, he became an elder of the slaughter hall. Step by step, he became the grand elder of the slaughter hall. Step by step, he gained the resounding reputation of the white-haired immortal king. My disciple, Hai Ming, is willing to go through fire and water for you for generations to come. I, Ming Hai, am willing to go through fire and water for young master. It had never changed. You. Chapter 1094. Before Ning Fan, every Sha Di had a title that was based on the Big Dipper. The first generation of the Slayer Emperor's titles were Greedy Wolf, the second generation Giant Gate, the third generation Lushuan, the fourth generation Wuxiu, the fifth generation Lianjin, the sixth generation Wuxia, and the seventh generation Vanquisher. Ning Fan searched the memories of Xue Chongkong and the others and saw the scenes of the seventh generation patriarch's death. In his scattered memories, he vaguely saw the Big Dipper blood boundary and the army destroyer Starry Sky. In the image, the seventh Slayer Emperor's deathly aura was getting heavier by the day. He had already sealed the Big Dipper blood boundary and guarded it alone. In the image, the Big Dipper blood world no longer allowed outsiders to enter. Only Deputy Hall Master Xue Chongkong, who had received special permission from the seventh generation, could bring people to enter at a specific time to give the seventh generation the natural treasures gathered by the experts of the first hall. On the screen, the seventh Slayer Emperor smiled as he gave Xue Chongkong some instructions. Xue Chongkong answered all of them respectfully. In the image, Xue Chongkong offered a poisonous pill for the seventh generation to consume. This was a secret medicine of the Calamity race. Even someone as powerful as the seventh generation would not be able to detect any hidden dangers if he did not check it repeatedly. The seventh generation king treated Xue Chongkong like his own son, and did not doubt him at all. Seeing that the pill was indeed beneficial to his body, he consumed the Calamity clan's poison pill. Then, the poison took effect and his cultivation base was reduced to less than 100%. His body was on the verge of death, and his cultivation was sealed. Naturally, it was difficult for him to resist Xue Chongkong and the others' plot, but he still fought until the last moment. I've never had a son in my life, and I've always regarded you as the most important. Why are you doing this? Why? So, you're a member of the Calamity clan. So, you're here to carry out a mission. Our standpoints are different. I can forgive you for your betrayal, but I cannot tolerate you harming the descendants of the Big Dipper Alliance. This is my home. It was also the home of countless Big Dipper descendants. This Big Dipper blood boundary is protected by the sword intent of the sacred slaughtering heavenly sword. It's easy for you to kill me, but it's extremely difficult to kill these descendants of the Big Dipper. The will of the Big Dipper will be passed down from generation to generation. Believe me, your calamity race will not be able to slaughter all of my Big Dipper descendants. Do you know that there was once a boy who promised me that he would take over my will and protect the Big Dipper blood boundary for me? I trust him. He will definitely come. I gave him a jade slip to protect himself that day. Now it seems that the jade slip is no longer useful. Fine, since the jade slip is useless, I'll exchange it for some treasures and give it to him. You can't have the treasure I left for him. Before he died, he still firmly believed that Ning Fan would fulfill his promise and come to replace his will. I trust him. He will come. It was just a simple sentence, but it caused ripples in Ning Fan's heart that could not be erased for a long time. As for the treasure that Sha Di said was left behind, Ning Fan could not find it in the broken Army Star Palace after searching for it. Thus, he had no choice but to give up. If he couldn't find it, then so be it. He actually didn't lack treasures. The grave of the 7th generation patriarch was built in the broken Army Star Palace by Ning Fan. He sewed his head back to his physical body and placed it into the coffin. What was placed into the coffin together with the 7th generation patriarch was Ning Fan's jade slip, which he did not use up in the end. There was no grand funeral. Only a few of the slaughter hall's elders attended the simple funeral. The millions of descendants of the Northern Dipper blood world did not know that the 7th generation patriarch had passed away. They were protected by the sacred slaughtering heavenly desolate sword intent. Thus, the rebellion this time did not affect them at all. In front of the grave, Ning Fan personally sacrificed the traitors to comfort the heroic soul of the 7th generation patriarch. After that, he dismissed all the elders of the slaughter hall and stood alone in the dilapidated broken Army Star Palace. He looked at the land below the Star Palace, the city walls and the countless descendants of the Northern Dipper blood world. Ning Fan recalled the time when he pursued the Tao in the Northern Dipper blood world. He also had some feelings for the Northern Dipper blood world. However, those feelings were obviously not as deep as the feelings he had for the past generations of Sha Di. After all, he was not a true member of the slaughter hall. He did not have the nostalgia that the 7th generation patriarch had for his homeland. However, he would certainly do what he had promised. Since the 7th generation patriarch was dead, from now on Ning Fan would be the guardian of the Northern Dipper blood world. Great young Emperor Ning, I'm sorry for your loss. Yao Qingyun's comforting voice suddenly resounded behind him. She held Ning Fan's hand tightly. Her beautiful eyes were filled with worry. She was very worried that Ning Fan would feel sad because of Sha Di's death. Ning Fan was surprised. He shook his head and smiled gently. My condolences? No need. To cultivators, life and death were something that couldn't be more common. Among all the outstanding cultivators since ancient times, how many of them could truly live forever? Mortals had a limited lifespan. Immortals had a limited number of heavenly tribulations. As for immortal cultivators, they had to face countless life and death crises. If one is afraid of death, there was no point in cultivating the Tao anymore. What Ning Fan was concerned about was not the death of Sha Di. Even if he prolonged Sha Di's life, it would only allow him to live for a few more days. In the end, he would still die. What he regretted was that Sha Di's death was too painful. He was an old man with one foot in the grave, but he was betrayed by the person he regarded as his own son. How miserable must it be when he was on the verge of death? You didn't leave with the other elders. I'm a little worried. Worried about me? Don't worry. I'm not that sad. My friendship with the 7th generation patriarch is actually not that deep. The only thing that kept us together was gratitude and a promise. That's why I'm feeling a little emotional. Traitors are really scary things, Ning Fan said with a smile and stroked Yao Qingyun's black hair. His mind, however, was thinking about Inmo's betrayal of the Purple Do Immortal Domain, which indirectly led to the destruction of the Purple Do Immortal Domain. Yao Qingyun blushed. After making sure that no one was around, she allowed Ning Fan to continue stroking her hair. She raised her head and met Ning Fan's eyes, which were as dark as the abyss. Somehow, she recalled the crazy scenes that happened in the Cave of the Six Desires Immortal King in the past. At that time, Ning Fan's eyes were just as deep and serene. Thus, her face became even redder. For some reason, she whispered to Ning Fan, "Little fellow, I won't betray you." Of course, I know that you won't betray me. Your body has always been honest." "Then, great young Emperor Ning, do you want to come to my immortal cave and have a look at my honest body?" Yao Qingyun rolled her eyes at Ning Fan angrily. She was talking about something serious, but Ning Fan interrupted her. Speaking of which, she still blamed Ning Fan for making their relationship known to the public. Now that this matter has been spread, how was she going to raise her head in front of the other elders in the future? Now the entire Slaughter Palace was talking about how she, an elder and a she-shedding void realm expert, had once forced herself on Ning Fan, who had a low cultivation base at that time. She was really shameless and had no shame at all. Let's see how this despicable rumor has spread to the entire Slaughter Palace. However, she couldn't be blamed for that. Back then, her cultivation base was far higher than Ning Fan's. Of course, no one would believe that she was the one who was forced on by him. Who would have thought that when the aphrodisiac poison acted up, she was in a daze and spouted nonsense, allowing Ning Fan to do whatever he wanted to her. In the end, Ning Fan forced himself on her. She was the victim, all right? Now, when she invited Ning Fan to her cave, all she said were ironic words. She had already made up her mind that she would not have sex with Ning Fan for the time being. As for the long term, in any case, she did not want others to make groundless accusations and spread more rumors about her in the short term. All right. Recently, everything has been going against me, and I'm feeling a little frustrated. I need a good release. Later, I will go to your cave to find you." Ning Fan gave Yao Qingyun a deep look and said with a smile, "Are you really going to come?" Cough cough. "This isn't good. It's really not good. We have to pay attention to our image," Yao Qingyun said seriously. During this special period, we indeed have to pay attention to our image." Ning Fan nodded his head as if he agreed with Yao Qingyun's point of view. This made Yao Qingyun let out a sigh of relief. At the same time, she also felt a little disappointed. Thinking about it, it made sense. The 7th generation had fallen and the 8th generation had inherited the throne. There were still many things that Ning Fan needed to deal with. Of course, he did not have the time to fool around with me. He was just joking and he would not really come. It's fine if he doesn't come. Ning Fan had risen to power in the Eastern Heaven. He was no longer a weak and insignificant life immortal realm cultivator in the past. When she saw Ning Fan again, Yao Qingyun actually felt a little complicated inside. She was a little nervous, worried about her gains and losses, and felt a little inferior. In short, she still did not know how she should face Ning Fan in the future. Should she still maintain a physical relationship with Ning Fan? How should she address Ning Fan? Actually, she preferred to call Ning Fan little fellow. However, be it Ning Fan's position in the palace or his cultivation base, she could no longer call him that casually anymore. In the past, she was Shikong, an elder, while Ning Fan was a life immortal realm cultivator and a disciple. Today she was still Shikong and an elder, while Ning Fan was an ancient monster, a young emperor and the future 8th killing emperor. Moreover, the thought-breaking old monster, immortal venerables and immortal kings whom she had to look up to were just like dust in Ning Fan's eyes. Perhaps she and Ning Fan were already people from two different worlds. It was better for her to keep a certain distance from him. Thus, Yao Qingyun left with a little disappointment. She swore that she had never been so sentimental in her life before. Unfortunately, that night, all the disappointment in her heart turned into shame and anger. This is her immortal cave, isn't it? This is her imperial concubine bed, isn't it? Who could tell her that she was just half leaning on the imperial concubine bed, and Ning Fan was already on top of her and stripping her clothes? Young Emperor, what are you doing? Stop. It's not good. Not here. Don't touch me. Don't worry. Your maidservants and the guards of the immortal cave are all under my illusion technique. No one will know about what happened tonight, and no rumors will be spread. Ning Fan spoke with a tone that said, "I've made thorough arrangements. You can rest assured," and began to delve deeper into Yao Qingyun. Yao Qingyun was so embarrassed that she wanted to hide her face. She had seen shameless people before, but she had never seen someone as shameless as Ning Fan. What happened to being mindful of my influence? What happened to keeping a distance from me temporarily? Ning Fan didn't say anything about keeping a distance from me. Her mind was still trying to think of something else, but it was quickly turned blank by the tide-like impact. She wanted to scold him, but when the words came to her mouth, they turned into soft moans. Bullshit, young emperor. This little fellow is still as shameless and powerful as before. Ah. It's too deep. Very good. Really good. You're the one who wanted to seduce me. Since you've entered my body, you better not regret it. Yao Qingyun turned around and pressed Ning Fan down. She played with the hair on her temples and sneered. Little fellow, if I don't squeeze you dry today, I will write my name Yao backwards. Ning Fan smiled with satisfaction. This was the Yao Qingyun he knew. The one from before was too unfamiliar, too reserved. It was a crazy night. The second night was still crazy. On the third night, Yao Qingyun lost the battle due to exhaustion. Ning Fan, on the other hand, walked out of the cave in high spirits. He called for Yao Qingyun's maidservant to serve her, and left with a smile. After a bout of madness, Ning Fan vented out all the negative emotions in his heart. His mood became much better. Looking at the Dark Race, the Calamity Race, the Slaughter Palace, and the Ancient Chaos Great Emperor, Ning Fan could already face them calmly without any worries or fear. Life is long, there is no need to worry too much, just live happily. Blade lights and sword shadows, seas of blood and mountains of corpses. All of these were just ordinary meals that could be cooked in one pot. Old Wu and the other servants were waiting outside Yao Qingyun's immortal cave. When they saw that Ning Fan was finally done, all of them were shocked. For 3 whole days, Master had been working. He was really persistent. What did it mean to be a real man of iron blood? This was it. Master is very capable. For 3 days in a row, Mistress Yao must be very satisfied. Admirable. Since ancient times, Little 8 would only listen to Master. In this situation, Little 8 wanted to recite a poem. How does an ancient poem go? There is a little green in the midst of thousands of flowers. Master's head is green. No, not this one. Old Wu was so anxious that he said the wrong thing. Stupid tortoise. That's called walking through thousands of flowers without a single leaf touching you. Uncultured people are really scary. Zhu Er was too lazy to care about Old Wu. He turned his back to Old Wu and farted to humiliate him. Wu Laoba immediately exploded and wrestled with Zhu Er. Crow Heavenly Dog howled and joined the battle. Sometimes he helped Old Wu bite Zhu Er, and sometimes he helped Zhu Er bite Old Wu. Ning Fan shook his head and ignored the 3 idiots. He went to find the immortal king of Nether Sea alone. He did not know what he talked about with Nether Sea, but someone brought him to the blood prison of the Slaughter Palace. At the bottom of the blood prison, there was an ancient sealing sword called the Sacred Heavenly Desolate Sword. Ning Fan dismissed everyone and entered the blood prison alone. In the past, his cultivation base was still weak, and he needed to wear an innate ghost mask to enter the depths of the blood prison. But now he did not need to do so. He could enter the 7th level of the blood prison with his own strength. The 7th level was shrouded in intense blood light. The blood light was filled with an unimaginably powerful baleful qi. Ning Fan had killed immortal emperors along the way, but he still felt a chill down his spine when facing the baleful qi here. No wonder it was said that even immortal emperors would find it hard to enter the 7th level of the blood prison. At least, Ning Fan did not dare to enter without the protection of the God-exterminating shield. Vaguely, he could feel the existence of an extremely sharp sword intent in the boundless blood light of the 7th level. The moment he stepped into this place, the sword intent locked onto him, as if it would kill him if he made any strange movements. Unfortunately, Ning Fan still could not see the shadow of the sealing sword in the blood light. In the past, he did not see it with his own eyes. He only heard about it from the 5 sword spirit girls. You are the young emperor chosen by the 7th generation. You are here again. In the boundless blood light, there was a voice talking to Ning Fan. This was the voice that Ning Fan could only hear after he used his all things communication ability. He could not hear it in the past and neither could the others. And I am here again. The 8th generation young emperor of the Slaughter Palace, Ning Fan greets Senior. Ning Fan cupped his fists towards the boundless bloodlight and chose to address the sealing sword as Senior. You can actually hear my voice? I see. You are a crippled divine spirit. The voice sounded surprised. Without waiting for Ning Fan to speak, the voice continued. Are you here to inherit the position of the 8th generation? Yes. Ning Fan answered. Every generation of young emperors would need to obtain the acknowledgement of the ancient sealing sword. That was why Ning Fan came here. Of course, the other young emperors could not communicate with the ancient sealing sword directly. They needed to burn incense and pray for the sword's acknowledgement. Ning Fan did not need to do that. He could talk to it directly. The voice asked again. I'm ready. As soon as Ning Fan finished speaking, he sat cross-legged on the ground. His eyes shone with bright green light, and his black hair fluttered without any wind. It's actually the 2nd level of the heavenly being realm. The 7th generation has really found an incredible monster. If it's you, you might be able to obtain enlightenment that is different from the other killing emperors from my lifetime's enlightenment. Thump thump. Thump thump. Thump thump. Suddenly, there was a strange heartbeat in the 7th level of the blood prison. The heartbeat reverberated across heaven and earth. It was very similar to the heartbeat caused by the ancient chaos great emperor that day, but there were also some differences. There was not only one heartbeat in the 7th level of the blood prison, but dozens of them. Under the control of the ancient sealing sword, the heartbeats did not spread out of the blood prison. They only reverberated in the 7th level of the blood prison. Only Ning Fan could hear the sound of those heartbeats. Only Ning Fan could sense how terrifying those heartbeats were. These dozens of heartbeats were all saint-level heartbeats that only a 7 orifices ancient god could possess. The vast ancient god aura reverberated in this place, causing Ning Fan's heart to beat uncontrollably. The frequency of his heartbeat was assimilated by the other party's heartbeats in an instant. The Big Dipper dust tribulation. The remnant soldiers turned into emperors. The sacred slaughterer Tian Huang gave birth to the idea of seizing the heavens. The immortal sovereign's 3,000 immortal seals comprehended the first 7 seals. He refined the heavens into a palm, and turned the palm into a seal. He defeated the purple immortal realm, and defeated the North Emperor. He was no match for Emozhong. He gave up the idea of seizing the heavens and set up the palace for slaughter. He commanded the galaxy to guard the blood descendants' world. My name is Sacred Slaughterer Tian Huang. No one after the 2nd generation knows my name. No one knows that I have another identity other than being a sword. I am the first killing emperor. I've watched the battle where you defended the Slaughter Temple. You are not bad. I rarely trust the descendants of Purple Dipper immortal cultivators. You are one of the rare exceptions. The 43 heartbeats that you heard are the heartbeats of the saints that I collected from the battlefield of Heaven Wasteland. Each heartbeat contains the insights of the saints. Each generation of killing emperor can only choose one of them to comprehend. Otherwise his Tao will collapse. The 7th generation comprehended the path to becoming a lord. The 6th generation comprehended the immortal spirit martial technique. The 5th generation comprehended the beast-controlling immortal art. The 4th generation comprehended the secret of the divine movement. The 3rd generation comprehended the ultimate technique of the immortal fire sect. The 2nd generation comprehended the profound principles of space and time. I am looking forward to what you will comprehend. The ancient sealing sword did not speak to Ning Fan anymore. Even if it did, Ning Fan would not have the mood to listen to it. At this moment, all he could hear were the heartbeats of the saints. Each time a heartbeat entered his ears, bloody scenes would appear in front of him. In those scenes, saints were fighting on the battlefield one after another until they died in battle. Ning Fan tried his best to maintain the calmness in his heart. At this moment, the heartbeats of the saints that entered his ears were complicated and messy. However, any heartbeat would bring great benefits to him. One of the benefits of succeeding the position of killing emperor was to obtain the ancient sealing sword as a reward. By listening to the heartbeat of a saint, one would be able to gain great enlightenment from it. If it wasn't for the benefits of succeeding the position of killing emperor, Ning Fan would certainly not go through these formalities. He would also not covet the title of the 8th killing emperor. Dong dong that the heartbeat of a saint entered Ning Fan's ears. Then, a scene appeared in his mind. It was a scene of a saint stepping on an aurora and flying in the sky. That scene seemed to be an extremely profound escape technique of the 3rd step. Dong dong that before Ning Fan could see the escape technique clearly, another heartbeat squeezed into his ears, causing another scene to appear in his mind. In the scene, a saint flicked a speck of dust and crushed an ancient great cultivator to death. That scene was indescribably breathtaking. Dong dong that the scene changed again. It was a scene of a saint exhaling a mouthful of green qi and forming 3 undying and indestructible clones. Dong dong that the scene kept changing. Each of the scenes contained indescribable mysteriousness. However, it was difficult to see each scene completely. Just as one could see a part of it, it would be interrupted by other scenes. Ning Fan somewhat understood why each of the young emperors could only choose one heartbeat to listen to. If they choose more than one heartbeat, the different scenes would switch back and forth, making it impossible for them to see everything and comprehend it perfectly. The jade slip that Ming Hai gave me mentioned that if I choose one heartbeat, I can mark it and perform a technique to ask the sacred slaughtering heavenly desolate sword to erase the other heartbeats. Only then can I focus on listening to the only heartbeat that I chose. Each of the heartbeats contains supreme enlightenment. Any one of them can improve my strength. However, there's something that I don't understand. The heartbeats that I heard were obviously 47. Why did the sacred slaughtering heavenly desolate sword tell me that it was 43? There are 4 extra heartbeats. Did I hear it wrongly, or is there another reason? Chapter 1095. Ning Fan did not ask what the 4 extra heartbeats were, because he faintly felt that the sacred slaughter heavenly desolate sword would not answer him even if he asked. He didn't ask any more questions. He just tried his best to calm down his turbulent heart. Previously, his heart had been unsettled to a certain extent. The reason for that was partly due to the shock of suddenly hearing the saint's heartbeat, and partly due to the surprise of knowing the other identity of the saintly slaughtering heavenly sword. The other identity of the saintly slaughtering heavenly sword was actually the slayer of the 1st generation? The first slayer wasn't human? A sword? Ning Fan also wanted to ask about this matter before, but he did not say it out loud. He knew what his priorities were. Now his priority was to empty his mind and let his body and mind become one. This was to avoid wasting the one and only opportunity for every young emperor to become a sacred listening saint. There are 3 benefits to succeeding the young emperors as the slayer. Listening to the sage's heartbeat is the first benefit. Due to certain restrictions, each person can only experience it once in their lifetime. Before Sha Di becomes a martial emperor, he would come here to listen to the heartbeat of a saint and gain enlightenment from it. Which saint's heartbeat should I choose to listen to? Ning Fan forgot everything around him and cast away all distracting thoughts. Gradually, his aura began to appear and disappear. Gradually, his aura completely disappeared from the world. Although he was still sitting cross-legged on the ground, his entire being seemed to have become a part of heaven and earth. Or perhaps, heaven and earth had become a part of his body. Unity of heaven and man, the 2nd realm. What kind of terrifying concentration is this? This lad seems to have noticed the problem of the heartbeat. This is something that none of the previous Sha emperors could do. As expected of a cultivator at the 2nd realm of the heaven realm. As expected of a hero with 2 heaven-grade Tao images. The sacred slaughtering heavenly desolate sword made a sound again. This time it was surprised. Unfortunately, Ning Fan could no longer hear it. There was nothing in his heart, and his 6 senses were untainted. At this moment, even if someone were to slash at Ning Fan with a blade, Ning Fan would remain unmoved. Dong dong. Thump thump. Dong dong. The heartbeat reverberating in his ears was getting more and more violent and clear. Images of the saints flashed across Ning Fan's mind. The profound principles they contained were presented to him one after another. In front of these complicated heartbeats of the saints, Ning Fan felt insignificant. He felt that his bone age of more than 100,000 years seemed long, but in fact it was very short. He felt that the hardships and bitterness he had experienced along the way were just the ripples on the surface of a calm lake. At this moment, his peaceful heart was actually the vast lake water at the bottom of the lake. Even though the scenes in his mind were still changing rapidly, the speed of the changes had slowed down due to the calmness in his heart. As the scenes changed, the length of the image that could be seen gradually lengthened. Ask me what I mean, perching on the jade mountain, smiling but not answering, my heart is at ease, the peach blossoms and flowing water vanish. There is another heaven and earth, not the human world. In the image, a sage in a woven rush cape was in the peach blossom spring, giving a lecture to the 100,000 disciples. With a lift of his hand he twirled a peach blossom petal. With a single thought, he actually opened up a world within a mere peach blossom petal. There were trillions of living beings within the petal world. There were so many living beings, but they didn't feel that the petal world was narrow. Instead, they still couldn't find the edge of the petal world. These living beings also didn't know that the world they lived in was actually just a petal that the sage casually picked up. The sage in the woven rush cape wore an indifferent expression. He crushed the petal in his hand into powder, and destroyed it along with the trillions of living beings in the petal world. All of them died. When he opened up the world and created trillions of living beings, he didn't feel any joy. When he destroyed the world and killed trillions of living beings, he also didn't feel any pity. In his eyes, all mortal beings were just illusions. The voices of the 100,000 disciples were like a tidal wave. The sage in the woven rush cape closed his eyes and didn't explain anything to them. After an unknown period of time, the sage in the woven rush cape opened his eyes. As if he had sensed something, he frowned. He gave a few instructions to his disciples, and then leaped into the sky, leaving the peach blossom spring. He flew to the peak of the world that was filled with peach trees. He lifted his hand and tore open the world of the peach blossom spring. Then he walked out of it. Countless disciples heard his movements, and stood up to send him off respectfully. In the outside world, a ray of light flew out from a drop of peach blossom dew and landed on the ground, turning into the sage in the woven rush cape. He turned his head to look at the dew and shook his head. Your filial piety is commendable. However, you aren't human. You can't see the true face of Mount Lu. The so-called world of the peach blossom spring was actually just a drop of dew in the outer world. As for the 100,000 disciples who sent him off respectfully just now, if one were to take a closer look, they would find that they were bacteria that were slightly larger in size in that drop of dew. As for the weaker and more subtle things, they couldn't be seen clearly from the outside world, let alone appear in the dew. They could only be seen by entering the world. The war in the ancient realm of Heavenly Desolate has intensified. This time, even I have to get involved. The sage in the woven rush cape shook his head and soared into the sky. At that moment, the scene changed. Even though it was still the same scene, there was already much more content than before. Ning Fan's heart skipped a beat. The trillions of living beings in the petal, the creation and destruction of the petal world, the peach blossom spring where the 100,000 disciples resided was actually just a drop of dew. Humans were like mayflies. There was a world within a world. Everything seemed to have opened the door to a new world for him. It made him feel like he understood something, but at the same time, it felt like he understood nothing at all. In the next scene, there was an armored sage plucking stars and refining magic treasures. The refinement technique of that sage was so exquisite that it had already exceeded Ning Fan's understanding. It was definitely not something that the common knowledge of the second step could understand. When that sage was halfway through refining his magic treasure, he suddenly frowned and muttered to himself, "Heavenly Desolate." Then he directly kept the magic treasure that he was halfway through refining and left in a hurry. The scene changed again. There was a sage who destroyed tens of thousands of worlds with a single sword strike. That sword technique was so profound. If Ning Fan could master it, he would definitely be undefeatable in the age of chaos. The scene changed again. It was the scene of two sages fighting barehanded. The body techniques they used were all things that surpassed the second step. A heartbeat, a scene, and a kind of enlightenment. The first 43 heartbeats were all the same without any exception. In the enlightenment of these 43 heartbeats, Ning Fan could even see a sage who used killing to prove his Tao. Each and every move of that sage contained the profound principles of the Tao of killing. If he could comprehend it, he would be able to comprehend the palm realm of killing step by step, from the palm realm to the Tao origin, or even to a higher level. There was a sage who reared spiritual insects of the third step. There was a sage who opened a forum and gave a lecture. There was also a sage who molded soil to create humans. However, when the 44th heartbeat appeared, all the 43 scenes that were flashing in Ning Fan's mind became calm. From the 44th heartbeat onward, the subsequent heartbeats seemed to be vastly different from the previous ones. He could not see any profound principles or enlightenment from them. It was as if those insights were not on the surface but were hidden deep inside. In this scene, there was only a mortal old man who lifted his head and looked at the night sky. He stared at the 7 stars of the Big Dipper in the night sky, as if he was looking at the stars, but also at himself. He seemed to be thinking about something, but he could not get an answer. Thus, his brows were tightly knitted together. Both of his eyes were bright silver. That silver color was the color of the stars that he was born with. He looked at the sky with his silver eyes and remained silent. He did not move at all. Even his expression did not change. If it wasn't for the plants in the painting that could move and the stars in the night sky that could flash, Ning Fan would almost think that this mortal old man was standing in a still and unmoving painting. There were even natural birds that built their nests on the silver-eyed old man's shoulder. They actually treated this living person as a tree. The plants under the silver-eyed old man's feet had just broken through the soil. It seemed to be spring in the surroundings. A mortal? No, it can't be. This 44th heartbeat is undoubtedly the heartbeat of a saint. This old man may look like a mortal, but he is undoubtedly a saint. Raising my head to look at the Big Dipper seems to be looking at myself. This scene does give me a sense of déjà vu, but it seems to be different from what I've comprehended before. Today people fish, tomorrow the heavens fish me. Ning Fan closed his eyes tightly and frowned slightly. Just as he was about to carefully comprehend this scene, the scene changed again. He could not continue to study it in depth. The 45th heartbeat entered his ears without permission. In the 45th scene, a middle-aged man was looking at the starry sky of the Big Dipper. That middle-aged man also had a pair of silver eyes. His appearance was extremely similar to the silver-eyed old man in the 44th scene. It was just like the appearance of the silver-eyed old man when he was younger. However, it was not just his appearance that was younger. Ning Fan felt that his cultivation base was slightly weaker than the silver-eyed old man. The silver-eyed middle-aged man also raised his head to look at the sky. His frown was even deeper than the silver-eyed old man's. When he looked at the Big Dipper in the night sky, it felt like he was also looking at himself. However, it also felt like he was not the only person he was looking at on his shoulder. There was a bird's nest that had been built for an entire spring. The plants under his feet had already grown to his knees. It was already summer. The silver-eyed middle-aged man in this scene and the silver-eyed old man in the previous scene should be the same person. What's strange is that judging from the sequence of time, the 45th scene should be after the 44th scene. However, this silver-eyed saint seems to be getting younger and younger. This scene seems to contain some insights that I can't reach. Soon, the 46th heartbeat forcibly entered the scene. In the 46th scene, the moon was round in the autumn night. However, a silver-eyed young man was not looking at the moon. Instead, he was looking at the 7 stars of the Big Dipper. The bird's nest on his shoulder had already been emptied. The surrounding plants began to wither and turn yellow. Fallen leaves covered the ground. Time passed from summer to autumn. This silver-eyed saint seemed to have become younger and his cultivation base had also weakened significantly. He remained silent until the 47th scene began. He still didn't speak. The 47th scene was in the middle of winter. It was a snowy night. Heavy snow swirled in the air. A silver-eyed young man stood in the snow without moving a single step. He looked at the 7 stars of the Big Dipper in the snow, and suddenly coughed out a mouthful of blood. Then he sighed. Sigh. This path really can't be taken. Everyone says that the 4th step immortal emperor is the Saint Defier. But where did the word defy come from and where did it end? I don't know if there's a fifth-step immortal emperor in this world, but even if there is, I don't dare to take this path. In the snow and wind, the silver-eyed young man's appearance gradually changed. His cultivation base continued to rise. Gradually, the young man turned back into a silver-eyed young man, a silver-eyed middle-aged man, and finally an silver-eyed old man. When his white hair reached the ground, his skin and flesh shriveled, and all his teeth fell out. An extremely powerful aura of the fourth-step immortal emperor burst out from his body. At this moment, midwinter began to move backward. It returned to late autumn, midsummer, and then early spring. He made a grabbing motion with his big hand. Then he raised his hand and summoned a sect from another heaven and earth. Then he placed it on the ground. Did the immortal emperor succeed? A few personal attendants with the cultivation base of a saint walked out from the sect and came to the silver-eyed old man. They asked respectfully. The silver-eyed old man just shook his head silently. The immortal emperor. The last 4 heartbeats were actually not the heartbeats of an ordinary saint. Instead, they were the heartbeats of a fourth-step saint defier. Ning Fan was secretly shocked. Could this immortal emperor who was watching the Big Dipper at night be the ancestor of the descendants of the Big Dipper? The immortal emperor? Could this heartbeat be the heartbeat of the immortal emperor of the Big Dipper? However, why would the heartbeat of the same immortal emperor produce 4 completely different sounds? According to Ning Fan's observation, the last 4 heartbeats had a lot of similarities, but there were even more differences. They did not sound like the heartbeats of the same person. Instead, they sounded more like the heartbeats of 4 different people. What exactly is the immortal emperor of the Big Dipper comprehending? What is the path that he is unable to walk that he mentioned? I don't understand. I don't understand. The more Ning Fan wanted to think about it, the more he could not understand it. His head felt like it was about to split open. His blood felt like it was burning, and the Tao laws in his body felt like they were collapsing. He knew that he was probably coveting something that he should not covet. He gritted his teeth and cut off his greed. He calmed his mind and threw the last 4 heartbeats to the back of his mind. In this way, the pain also disappeared. His intuition told him that the Tao comprehension contained in the last 4 heartbeats belonged to a fourth-step immortal emperor. Thus, its value was naturally far greater than the previous 43 heartbeats. However, his rationality told him that the last 4 heartbeats were not something that he could obtain. At most, he could only benefit from the previous heartbeats. All of a sudden, Ning Fan felt a little dispirited. He began to examine himself. He realized that even if he could benefit from the previous heartbeats, the benefits were just temporary. He had learned countless absolute arts in his life. Any one of them could make him invincible against ordinary cultivators at the same level as him. He did not lack any divine abilities. He also did not lack cultivation methods to reach the peak of the cultivation ending era. If he continues on his current path, Ning Fan was confident that he could reach the peak of the illusionary world in the cultivation ending era step by step. Then he would advance towards the legendary saint realm. If he succeeds, he would be invincible under the heavens. Even if he fails to become a saint realm expert, he would at least become a strengthened version of Great Emperor Ancient Chaos. He could still sweep across the illusionary world and protect the things that he wants to protect. Great Emperor Ancient Chaos had not become a Saint Realm expert, but he had killed a Saint Realm expert before. How valiant was that? Ning Fan had one more Jieshue than Ancient Chaos. Thus, his achievements in the future would certainly be higher than Ancient Chaos. Even if he stops at the Saint Realm, he would still be able to become a legend. As for becoming the ruler of the 3 great true worlds? That doesn't seem to be important. Ning Fan's original intention of cultivating the Tao was not to become the strongest in the world. Right from the beginning, his motive was different from most cultivators. As long as he could wipe out all his enemies in the illusionary world and protect his loved ones, becoming a Saint Realm expert or reaching the 4th step was just the icing on the cake. It was dispensable. His vision was actually very narrow. It was enough for him to guard the small area in front of him. However, when he thought about it that way, he felt a little lost. The more he cultivated the Tao, the more he could not find his own path. It was because the path would always extend forward. However, he did not have the desire to keep advancing. He just wanted to guard his back. A human's energy is limited after all. I have learned a lot of peerless absolute arts. However, the 5 yin-yang swords of Great Emperor Ancient Chaos is already not inferior to the absolute arts of a third-step Saint Realm expert. There are many other things that are at the same level. However, because I have learned too many things, I didn't have the time to study many of them. This time when I listened to the Saint Heart, it was supposed to be a chance for me to obtain another absolute art to establish myself. However, after watching the Big Dipper Immortal Sovereign comprehending the Tao, I felt even more insignificant than before. Thus, I decided not to do so anymore. Perhaps my path doesn't always point forward. Perhaps it's enough for my path to end at this point. I don't need to pursue the length of the path. I can just stop and widen the width of the path. I am willing to stop on this path of cultivation for the things that I care about. Or perhaps, this kind of stopping halfway is the path that belongs to me? Ning Fan's heart suddenly thumped. It was as if he had only recognized himself at this moment. It was as if he could hear his own heartbeat and his own inner voice. Yes, he was a person who was content with a small fortune. He was a person who was easily satisfied. If there was no external pressure, he would not be willing to pursue those illusory cultivation bases, fame and fortune. If he could wipe out all his enemies in the illusionary world, if he no longer had the need to increase his cultivation base, and if he encountered a cultivation realm that required him to risk his life to advance, he would certainly choose to give up. This is my heart. I disdain going forward all the way. However, if I really decide to stop here, then this place will be my country. No one can invade the place where my sword reaches. Thump thump, thump thump, thump thump. The sound of heartbeats reverberated from Ning Fan's body. In terms of aura force, this heartbeat was far less powerful than the heartbeat of a third-step saint. However, it was much more steady and resonant than the heartbeat of any other saint. At this moment, Ning Fan's heartbeat might still have some doubts. However, the last trace of confusion he had about cultivating the 3rd and 4th step had been completely swept away. Because he could let go of his delusional thoughts, he could persist in his heart. In Ning Fan's opinion, the superficial fame, superficial benefits and immortality that others valued greatly were actually just an illusion. This young man has actually managed to understand the Saint Heart in the 2nd step. How is this possible? It's already commendable that he could hear the heartbeat of the Big Dipper Sovereign. However, that was only because of the help of the 2nd step Heaven Realm. Any cultivator at the 2nd step Heaven Realm would probably be able to hear the heartbeat of the Big Dipper Sovereign. However, to understand the Saint Heart, even among the true saints, there are very few who can do it. Even if there are some who can do it, all of them are desolate saints who are the strongest among the saints. Even the weakest incipient saint is an outstanding individual who has attained the 3rd step Heaven Realm. Obviously, the unity of heaven and man is not the reason to help this young man understand the Saint Heart. No, it can't be said that he has understood the Saint Heart. This young man is not a saint. What he is doing is actually to understand the Saint Heart. However, if he really becomes a saint one day, he can easily understand the Saint Heart even if he has just stepped into the incipient saint realm. The sacred slaughtering heavenly desolate sword could not hide the shock in its heart. If it wasn't for the fact that it had been dead for many years and only its will remained in the sword, it would certainly show its human form and touch Ning Fan's body to study why this young man was so outstanding. At this moment, it finally believed that it was not a coincidence that Ning Fan possessed the Tao image that surpassed immortal sovereign Beidou. The Tao image was the manifestation of the Tao. The Tao that this young man has chosen is probably one of the most heaven-defying ones among the Tao guardians. If this Tao is fortunate enough to become a Tao path one day, this young man will probably become another immortal sovereign Zido, who is at the same level as him. I'm afraid that even immortal sovereign Zido himself did not expect that such a descendant of Zido would actually be born in the illusory dream world which is similar to a mass grave. What a pity. No matter how great this young man's innate potential is, he won't be able to ascend to the top of the mass grave. He was born in the wrong era. If he was born in the era when immortal sovereign Zido was still alive, his future would be limitless. Even if he doesn't enter the fourth step, he would still have a peerless future. My ability isn't enough to help him return to his true yang state from death. However, even if this young man can only step into the illusory dream world for the rest of his life, I'm still willing to help him consolidate the saint heart that he has just comprehended. This young man seems to look down on the heartbeat of these saints. Speaking of which, this young man is coincidentally an ancient god. If that's the case, I'll use the power of these ancient god hearts to help him open his ancient god heart aperture. The benefits of succeeding Shadi in the past have never gone to waste. I can't let this young man return empty-handed. Even if he doesn't have the chance to listen to the saint heart in the future, it doesn't matter anymore. Whether this young man can become strong enough to fight against the Calamity Clan or not is the key to the continuation of the Slaughter Palace. Qi blood-red sword intent suddenly spread across the 7th level of the blood prison, engulfing Ningfan in an instant. At this moment, Ningfan's heartbeat was calming down bit by bit. He no longer paid attention to the heartbeats of the other saints. Just as he was about to stop his comprehension, he suddenly sensed the overwhelming sword intent rushing towards him. He immediately sucked in a breath of cold air. This sword intent was too terrifying. It was enough to kill him hundreds or thousands of times. This was the sword intent of the sacred slaughter, heavenly desolate sword. If it has any malicious intent, he would certainly die. Fortunately, Ningfan firmly believed that the sacred slaughter heavenly desolate sword would not harm him. Since he was powerless to resist it, he remained calm and let the overwhelming sword intent approach him. As expected, when the sword intent arrived behind him, it did not cause any harm to Ningfan at all. It just drilled into his body and pierced his heart. Ningfan felt a piercing pain in his heart, but he did not do anything to stop it. It was because he could feel the tremendous benefits brought by the sword intent piercing his heart. This sacred slaughter heavenly desolate sword had actually dissolved the power of the saint's heartbeat to help him open his ancient divine heart aperture. 8th generation, since you are unwilling to listen to the heartbeat of the saints, I will give you benefits in a more direct way. In the past, I did not collect much heart force of the saints. Since the previous killing emperors listened to the heartbeat of the saints, a lot of it was consumed. The remaining heart force is more or less enough for you to open your 4th and 5th heart apertures. As for the other heart apertures, you will need to find other opportunities to open them. It was the first time the sacred slaughter, heavenly desolate sword addressed Ningfan in such a formal manner. The 8th generation. This was not only a form of acknowledgement, but also a form of respect for Ningfan, treating him as an equal. At this moment, it was not talking to Ningfan as the sacred slaughter heavenly desolate sword. Instead, it was giving a junior benefits with the identity of the first killing emperor. Speaking of which, the 7th generation left something for you. He sent it to me through a secret method, and it was not taken away by those traitors. When a sovereign emperor dies, there is a certain chance for him to give birth to a sovereign emperor's Dao fruit. The 7th generation died an unfortunate death. Perhaps the heavens have compensated him for that, allowing his sovereign throne of slaughter to be passed down. Next, not only will I help you open your heart aperture, but I will also help you absorb the power of this sovereign throne of slaughter. Of course, you won't be able to directly condense the void of the sovereign throne. However, it is also a matter of course for your cultivation of the Tao of slaughter to improve greatly. My slaughter palace is a sect of 7 generations of killing emperors. No matter what our relationship was before we became emperors, be it father or son or master and disciple, we will all address each other as senior and junior brothers after we become emperors. You are the 8th generation, and the same goes for you. From now on, you can call me the first killing emperor, or you can also call me senior brother. You can also call me the sacred slaughter heavenly desolate sword, the ancient sealing sword. It's up to you. As for our master, we don't have a master. We only have a common belief that has been passed down from generation to generation. That belief is to protect the descendants of the Big Dipper immortal domain. What we are protecting is not the Big Dipper immortal sovereign, but the Big Dipper blood world. It is our home. It is the homeland that belongs to the cultivators of the Slaughter Palace and the last descendants of the Big Dipper blood world. Of course, the one who wants to hear you call him senior brother the most as the 8th generation is actually the 7th generation. Unfortunately, you won't have the chance anymore. Ning Fan's eyes were not filled with joy when he obtained the power of the sovereign rank of Slaughter. Instead, his eyes turned gloomy and his heart ached. The 7th generation died a sad and humiliating death. However, before he died, he actually kept the Dao fruit of the sovereign rank of Slaughter for him. What kind of virtue and ability did he have to receive so many favors from the 7th generation? I believe him. He will definitely return. None of you will be able to obtain the treasure that I left for him. Ning Fan clenched his fists and closed his eyes, hiding all of his emotions in the bottom of his heart. When he opened his eyes again, he was already calm and determined. The heart aperture was opened bit by bit. The ardent primordial art was secretly activated in his body. The power of the sovereign rank of Dao fruit was easily condensed into the highest grade heaven-grade Dao crystal by Ning Fan. Suddenly, he pointed at the sky and the Dao scripture appeared. His index finger drew in the air and wrote a new chapter on the Dao scripture. It was a chapter that belonged to the Slaughter Palace. It was written into the list of divine stars by Ning Fan. Because the power of the sovereign rank of Slaughter that he received did not have the monstrous devil chi. There was only the concern of a senior towards a junior. There was only the lingering warmth left before death. It was not violent but warm. It was like a senior brother caring for his future junior brother. 7th generation, no. Senior, no. Senior brother. As long as Ning Fan is alive, I will not let the Slaughter Palace be destroyed in front of me. You have been carrying this burden for far too long. From now on, I will carry it for you. Ning Fan said in his heart. There was also a trace of complicated feelings flowing in his heart. In the past, he did not have a senior brother. Now he has one. And these senior brothers had nothing to do with the masters that he acknowledged in his heart. It had nothing to do with his clan or the immortal domain. If the 7th generation was still alive, he would probably be very pleased to hear Ning Fan call him senior brother with his identity as the 8th generation. Unfortunately, as the sacred desolate sword had said, he no longer had the chance to do so. If there is another reincarnation, I will personally call you senior brother in front of you to make up for it. Ning Fan seemed to be talking to himself, but also to the power of the sovereign rank of Slaughter that was constantly surging into his body. Originally, there was a trace of negative emotion in the power of the sovereign rank of Slaughter that was similar to regret. After Ning Fan said those words, it quietly disappeared. It was as if the last trace of regret of the 7th generation killing emperor had also been released. I believe in him. This young man will certainly guard the Slaughter Palace well. He will. Because he is the 8th generation young emperor that I personally chose. He is my junior brother that I personally chose. Chapter 1096. Time flew. 1 month passed in the blink of an eye. Ning Fan was still sitting cross-legged in the blood prison without moving. The sacred desolate heavenly desolate sword intent that was raging around him gradually calmed down. After 1 month, Ning Fan had completely refined the sovereign realm Dao fruit left by the 7th slaying emperor, and cultivated the Yin-Yang ancient divine realm, Slaughter Yin-Yang. The number of heart orifices in his ancient god heart had increased to 5 orifices after absorbing the heart force of the ancient divine beings. The 7th level of the blood prison was dead silent. Ning Fan sat still with his legs crossed. The ancient god aura force around his body gradually increased as time passed. The current Ning Fan was no longer a 3-orifice ancient god, but a 5-orifice ancient god. In this era of Dharma decline where ancient gods were extinct, he was almost the highest level ancient god. Ancient gods were divided into different levels based on the number of heart orifices. The medicinal effect of a pill consumed by a 3-orifice ancient god was only 8 times that of an ordinary person, while a 5-orifice ancient god would have a terrifying effect of 32 times. Ning Fan could feel his ancient god bloodline boiling inside his body. Because he had absorbed the heart force of many ancient divine beings, his ancient god bloodline was also constantly improving. If someone could see through Ning Fan's bloodline, they would certainly notice that there was a drop of ancestral blood taking shape inside his body bit by bit. It was emitting a tremendous qi. Another month passed. Under Ningfan's control, that drop of ancestral blood finally took its initial form. It was filled with boundless rain intent. In the past, Ningfan became an ancient god with royal bloodline because of a fortuitous encounter with the rain ancestor. Therefore, the origin of his ancient god bloodline was the same as the rain ancestor's bloodline. Now that his ancient god bloodline had absorbed the heart force of the saints, its origin remained unchanged even though its grade had improved. The foundation of his bloodline was still rain. As soon as the ancestral blood was formed, the ancient god aura force around Ningfan's body naturally increased by countless times. The circulation of the ancient god magic power in his body was also much smoother than before. The benefits brought by the improvement of his bloodline would not be directly reflected in his cultivation base. However, it would have a profound impact on his future path of cultivation. Therefore, it was very important. Ningfan began to consolidate the newborn ancient god ancestral blood in his body. After another 4 months, the newborn ancestral blood in his body was completely stabilized and truly became a part of his bloodline. At this point, Ningfan had cultivated 3 of his 4 bloodlines to the ancestor realm. He had truly become the common ancestor of all gods, demons and devils. He could feel that his god, demon, and demon cultivation had become more harmonious with each other. The opposing yin cultivation and yang cultivation in his body had also become more balanced and harmonious. The 400 million pores all over his body gave off a refreshing feeling, and he could clearly feel that his cultivation speed had increased significantly. He stood up and exhaled a long breath of turbid air. He stroked the killing yin and yang star between his eyebrows with a complicated expression. With the help of the sovereign Dao fruit, the process of Ningfan cultivating the yin-yang killing art was much smoother than when Great Emperor Ancient Chaos helped him cultivate the yin-yang rain art. After all, refining an entire sovereign Dao fruit was an extremely rare item in the Dharma ending era. The number of sovereign emperors in the degenerate era could be counted on one's fingers. The chances of a sovereign emperor dying and becoming a sovereign Dao fruit wasn't high. Did you not see that when Lightning Emperor Taisu's Dao was extinguished, he did not produce a lightning palm Dao fruit? Even though this was the case, there were still countless Eastern Sky cultivators who spared no effort in searching for the Dao fruit that had never existed before. They dreamed of reaching the peak of the second step in a single night. If Ningfan had other sovereign Dao fruits, it wouldn't be too difficult for him to cultivate the other yin-yang killing art. Unfortunately, it would be very difficult for him to encounter such an opportunity in the future. As for the increase in his cultivation base brought by cultivating the yin-yang killing art, unfortunately, his current ancient god realm cultivation base could no longer have any improvement because he had yet to break through to the eternal ancient god realm. Hence, the increase in his cultivation base brought by cultivating the yin-yang killing art was forcefully taken away by his crippled divine spirit body and used to increase the strength of his body in all aspects. Ningfan could indeed feel that his crippled divine spirit body had become a little stronger. Thank you for giving me this opportunity, Senior. Ningfan naturally felt grateful towards the sacred slaughtering heavenly sword after obtaining some benefits. He cupped his fists and bowed to the vague sword shadow in the bloody light. Until now, he still had not seen the true appearance of the sacred slaughtering heavenly sword. He felt a little regretful, but he did not show it on his face. There was most likely a reason why the other party did not show its true appearance to him. Ningfan knew the severity of the situation, and he would not force it. You're still calling me Senior? Have you forgotten what I said before? You really don't want to call me Senior, brother. The sacred slaughtering heavenly sword's inner voice was transmitted to Ningfan with a smile. Ningfan was stunned. Then he smiled bitterly and said, "Please forgive me, Senior brother. It's not that I don't want to call you that. It's just that I'm not used to it. I accidentally forgot how I should address you that way. After all, even though I have a master throughout my journey of cultivation, I have never had a senior or junior brother. I don't know how to get along with each other. You'll get used to it slowly. It's not easy for each generation's Shadi to change his way of addressing you. Of course, the brotherhood between you and me is not something that can be cultivated in a short period of time. Of course, the brotherhood between us isn't something that can be cultivated in a short period of time. As for you, since you've already obtained the first benefit of inheriting the title of Shadi, you should leave the blood prison as soon as possible. I'm afraid that the current Great Elder has already arranged an emperor conferring ceremony outside. He's just waiting for you, the main character, to go there. Emperor conferring ceremony, huh? I understand. I'll go there now. However, before you leave, you have some questions in your heart that you want to ask me, right? Yes. Ningfan answered. He had too many questions that he wanted to ask about the fact that the sacred slaughtering heavenly sword was actually the first Shadi. The history of the Slaughter Palace clearly recorded that the first Shadi had already died in the ancient times. But why was he still alive? If he is really still alive, why did he allow the Calamity clan to invade us and not do anything about it? Why did he just watch the 7th generation get killed by a group of traitors without doing anything? I don't understand. I know what you're confused about. I won't hide it from you. The reason why I didn't show up to protect the 7th generation wasn't because I was unwilling to. Instead, it was because I didn't dare to. The history of the Slaughter Palace isn't wrong. I've indeed died a long time ago. However, because my true form is a sword, a peerless divine weapon, my body was preserved as a divine sword after I died. Moreover, a trace of my will was left in this sword. The me that you're seeing now isn't me either. It's just a trace of the sacred slaughtering heavenly swords will before my spiritual sense dissipated. Because of the existence of the sacred slaughtering heavenly sword, the Calamity clan did not dare to launch a large-scale attack, even though they had designs on the last descendants of the Big Dipper clan. Instead, they restrained themselves. Otherwise, if the clan leader of the Calamity clan, Huado, were to come to the Slaughter Palace personally or send 1 or 2 quasi-saints, it would be enough to annihilate the Slaughter Palace hundreds or thousands of times. Even though I've retained a trace of my will, and can control the sacred slaughtering heavenly sword to protect the Slaughter Palace, I only have the power to launch a single attack. This attack is extremely powerful. If I use my full strength, even if an ordinary great cultivator from the ancient times comes, there will still be a slight chance of killing him or injuring him severely. However, after I kill him, the will that I left in the sacred slaughtering heavenly sword will completely disperse. No one will be able to control the sacred slaughtering heavenly sword anymore, and it won't be able to unleash the power that can deter ancient great cultivators. It will become an item without a master. It will attract countless cultivators in the last age of cultivation to fight for it. When the 7th generation died, I wished that I could save him. However, I knew very well that if I couldn't control myself and acted, even if I saved the 7th generation at that time, what awaited me would definitely be an all-out attack from the Calamity clan. When the quasi-saints of the Calamity clan arrive, the Slaughter Palace would still have to be destroyed and the 7th generation would still have to die. On the other hand, if I watch the 7th generation die, the remaining disciples of the Slaughter Palace and the descendants of the Big Dipper clan would still have a chance to survive. Sigh. I kept calling the 7th generation my junior brother, but I've neglected his life and death twice. I've let him down. The sacred slaughtering heavenly sword's tone was filled with deep pain and self-blame. The pain of watching its junior brother die in front of its eyes, but not daring to save him was even more unbearable than killing it. Ningfan fell into silence for a while. He finally understood the sacred slaughtering heavenly sword's difficulties. The sacred slaughtering heavenly sword was the body of the first generation killing emperor. The first generation killing emperor had already died a long time ago. Only a trace of his will was left in the sword, which allowed him to control the sword and unleash its final attack. The power of this attack was enough to make great cultivators of the ancient times turn pale upon hearing its name. However, it only had one attack and it could not be replicated a second time. Therefore, this attack could not be used recklessly. Instead, it should not be used at all times. Only then could it strike fear into the hearts of all the enemies. There were once 6 immortal emperors of the Calamity clan who attacked the Slaughter Palace. The 7th generation killing emperor risked his life to fight against the Slaughter Palace and was severely injured. There shouldn't be any quasi-saints involved in that battle. If more quasi-saints came, it would be impossible for the 7th generation Nine Tribulations realm to defend the Big Dipper blood boundary with his cultivation base at the peak of the 9th Tribulation realm. As a secret race, the Calamity clan naturally did not lack quasi-saints. In fact, it was highly possible that there was more than one quasi-saint. The reason why the quasi-saints did not show up at the same time was probably because they were afraid of the sacred slaughtering heavenly sword that still had one last attack left. They were afraid that they would be killed by the sacred slaughtering heavenly sword once they show up and their cultivation base would go down the drain. Who in this world would not have selfish motives? Even someone as strong as a quasi-saint would not be willing to sacrifice himself for the sake of others. As long as the sacred slaughtering heavenly sword never uses its final attack, the quasi-saints of the Calamity clan would never dare to be the vanguard of the attack on the Slaughter Palace. Their enemies would at most be ordinary immortal emperors who were regarded as cannon fodder by the Calamity clan. In the past, there were 6 immortal emperors who attacked the Slaughter Palace. However, just from the fact that the quasi-saints did not participate in the attack, Ningfan knew that the Calamity clan was vicious. They actually wanted to use the 6 immortal emperors as the vanguard and the bait to force the Slaughter Palace into a dead end. They wanted to force the sacred slaughtering heavenly sword to use its final attack. Only then would the quasi-saints who had no qualms about attacking the Slaughter Palace on a large scale, sacrificing 6 immortal emperors to attack the Slaughter Palace. Only the 10 great secret races would be able to do such a thing. However, the Calamity clan had miscalculated. Even if the sacred slaughtering heavenly sword did not use its final attack, the 7th generation of the Calamity clan actually managed to repel the encirclement of 6 immortal emperors and defend the Northern Dipper blood boundary with his own strength. In the end, the Calamity clan did not use the final attack of the sacred slaughtering heavenly sword. After that, the Calamity clan sent a few spies to assassinate the 7th generation. Then, they tried to use the spies to secretly exhaust the sacred slaughtering heavenly sword's final attack after the 7th generation's death. Unfortunately, this scheme was foiled because of Ningfan's intervention. When he thought of this, Ningfan's heart skipped a beat. He suddenly had a bad feeling. What the Calamity clan was afraid of was not the 7th generation killing emperor, but the final attack of the sacred slaughtering heavenly sword. This was something he did not know before he came to the Slaughter Palace this time. If the 7th generation was not dead, as long as he was still alive and the quasi-saints of the Calamity clan did not come out, they would not be able to force the Slaughter Palace into a dead end. Even if a few more immortal emperors besieged them, the 7th generation would most likely be able to defend the Slaughter Palace. However, they could not force the sacred slaughtering heavenly sword to use its final attack. The 7th generation estimated that he could only live for 2,000 years. That was why he gave Ningfan 2,000 years to grow. He needed Ningfan to take his place to guard the Slaughter Palace and resist the attacks from the quasi-saints of the Calamity clan. However, the 7th generation had died before the 2,000 years deadline was up. Does the Calamity clan know about the death of the 7th generation? If they do, would they take the opportunity to invade the Slaughter Palace? The Slaughter Palace, which had lost the guardian of the 7th generation, did not even need a quasi-saint to come. Any immortal emperor would be enough to kill all the disciples and elders of the Slaughter Palace and bring disaster to the Slaughter Palace. At that time, if the sacred slaughtering heavenly sword does not make its move, it would have to watch the immortal emperors of the Calamity clan slaughter all the descendants of the Big Dipper clan. If it makes its move, it would only have the power to launch a single attack. Even if it kills the current invaders, the invaders in the future would no longer be able to resist it. The Slaughter Palace would still be destroyed. Your concern is very likely to come true. If I'm not mistaken, the immortal emperors of the Calamity clan will probably come to your emperor conferring ceremony this time to test your strength. If you can't even resist an immortal emperor, I will have to deal with those enemies. If senior brother uses the final attack, if it really comes to that, the Slaughter Palace's fate will really be exhausted. You don't have to defend the Big Dipper blood boundary anymore. You won't be able to defend it even if you do. I only need you to do one thing, and that is to protect the few descendants of the Big Dipper clan. so that they can escape. At least, you can preserve the last part of their bloodline. Don't be afraid, senior brother. Even if the immortal emperors of the Calamity clan really come to my emperor-conferring ceremony, you don't have to be afraid. Fortunately, I have already made arrangements. With my humble wife Zhongyu here, there will not be any trouble in this emperor-conferring ceremony. Zhongyu? This name sounds familiar. When I was still alive, I seem to have heard of this new person's name. However, that woman is an ancient cultivator. She is most likely not the same person that junior brother is talking about. Oh, senior brother has heard of my humble wife's name? This is really a coincidence. It can also be considered as some kind of fate. To be honest, this woman is junior brother's lover. She is an ancient great emperor. After a few twists and turns, she reappeared in the world during the Dharma ending era. Even though she is severely injured and cannot fight excessively, with her current cultivation base that is half a step into the quasi-saint realm, it is still more than enough for her to intimidate a few immortal emperors of the Calamity clan. In the past, the Calamity clan only sent 6 immortal emperors to besiege the 7th generation. I'm afraid that there is a limit to how many immortal emperors of the Calamity clan they can send. This time, if they are just testing the waters and not launching a full-scale attack, they might not even send 6 immortal emperors. It is highly likely that only 1 or 2 of them will come. Moreover, I, your junior brother, will more or less be able to resist a 6th tribulation immortal emperor. If I help you from the side, it will naturally be more stable. It's fine if the Calamity clan doesn't send anyone to investigate my background. If they really send an immortal emperor here, junior brother will certainly make them return in defeat. Junior brother actually took an ancient great emperor, who is half a step into the quasi-saint realm as his concubine? Junior brother's actions really can't be judged by common sense. The sacred slaughtering heavenly desolate sword's tone became a little strange. Taking an extraordinary woman who is half a step into the quasi-saint realm as his concubine? Even an ancient great cultivator like it did not dare to ask for such an extravagant request. It could only depend on fate. However, Ning Fan actually did it. This young man is indeed a freak who can't be judged by common sense. Since junior brother is so confident about the emperor conferring ceremony this time, I won't say anything more. In short, if things really develop to the worst stage, junior brother must remember the task that I gave you. Ning Fan remained silent and did not express his opinion. In short, just remember what I've told you. Other than that, do you have anything else you want to ask me? About the true world, the Purple Dipper Immortal Domain, and the Northern Dipper Immortal Domain. I will try my best to tell you everything you want to know. Is the sacred slaughtering heavenly desolate sword the Calamity clan's scheme against the Slaughter Palace? Or perhaps there are other schemes that are more important than this sword? Ning Fan thought for a while and asked. What they are after is the sacred slaughtering heavenly desolate sword. However, it's not just the sword. I can't tell you the specifics. I can't tell you? In other words, this matter involves existences at the 4th step. Could it be related to the immortal sovereign of the Northern Dipper? Ning Fan nodded, and did not continue to ask about this matter. Instead, he asked another question. I can feel that the sacred slaughtering heavenly desolate sword is extremely extraordinary. No, I can't say that it's extraordinary. The feeling that this sword gives me is simply terrifying. The killing intent it contains is something I've never seen before in my life. This sword should be in existence similar to the Joss Flame sword. However, it's somewhat similar but it's actually not. What exactly is the origin of this sword? Since it's called the Sacred Slaughtering Heavenly Desolate Sword, what is its relationship with the Heavenly Desolate Ancient Realm that connects the illusory world and the 3 great true worlds? Sigh. I can't tell you. Then forget it. Don't you want to ask some questions that even the descendants of the Purple Dipper Immortal Domain are concerned about? About the true world, about the Purple Dipper Immortal Domain, and about... Anyway, most of the things can't be told, right? There's no difference whether I ask or not. Why do I have to ask so many questions? That's true. I really can't give you too many answers. Since you're not interested, I won't tell you anymore. It's not that I'm not interested in all of them. I'm very interested in someone in the true world. Oh, who are you interested in? I'll tell you everything that I can. I'm very interested in the Sword Ancestor. Sword Ancestor? When I walked in the true world, immortal Emperor Beidou had yet to pass away. At that time, there were no almighties above true immortals in the true world, and they were given the title of Sword Progenitor. The true world is vast. Unless you reach the fourth step, no one will be able to truly understand all the living beings in the true world. Perhaps I am ignorant. She shouldn't be ignorant. This woman is from the ancient desolate immortal realms, and seems to be the #1 immortal emperor under the ancient desolate immortal emperor. The strongest immortal emperor of the primordial era? Woman? When I was alive, the strongest immortal emperor of the primordial era wasn't the Sword Progenitor, nor was it a woman, but the Eastern Sea Sovereign. In the past, the #1 Tharch was also known as the Great Paragon. If he was called the Sword Ancestor, it would be a little strange. It doesn't conform to the customs of the ancient desolate immortal domain. Perhaps this woman became a Sword Ancestor after senior brother passed away. Do you know her name? If you tell me the name, I might have an impression of it. Name? Perhaps her name is Ji Qingling. Perhaps this is just a fake name. Ji Qingling? Never heard of it. However, I do know that Ji is the surname of the immortal emperor of the ancient desolate immortal domain. This surname might be ordinary in other places, but it's a kind of supreme glory in the ancient desolate immortal domain. Not ordinary people can use it. Only the immortal cultivators of the ancient desolate immortal domain, who have made great contributions, are qualified to be bestowed this surname by the immortal emperor. Those who have made great contributions will have the chance to be bestowed this surname as well. The name Ji Qingling might have been bestowed to this woman after she made great contributions after I passed away. That's why I have never heard of it. I don't think she used this name in the past. Forget it. I'm just asking casually. It's fine even if senior brother doesn't know about it. When Ning Fan recalled that the Sword Ancestor had passed away twice in front of him, his heart ached a little. This woman should be extremely special to him. However, he knew very little about her. Fortunately, he had planted her soul seed in her. Fortunately, she was not really erased from the world. We will meet again in the end. I still have some other questions that I want to ask. They are all questions about cultivation. They aren't some great secrets of heaven and earth. After a long time, Ning Fan finally finished his conversation with the Sacred Slaughter Heavenly Sword. Before it left, the Sacred Slaughter Heavenly Sword asked Ning Fan to leave its 5 living little sword spirits behind. At the same time, it also left the 5 elements vase, an innate magic treasure that could help to raise the cultivation base of a weapon spirit. The 5 little sword spirits that you brought with you in the past have extraordinary aptitudes. They can even see through my sword body. Just this alone is already an aptitude that only 1 in a million people have among the sword spirits. If they are properly nurtured, they can also become your helpers in the future. My true form is a sword. Perhaps I can guide those 5 little girls in their cultivation. Those 5 little girls are too noisy. If they stay here, they will disturb senior brother's peaceful cultivation, won't they? It's all right. Due to some reasons, I can't get out of the 7th level of the blood prison before I unleash my final attack. It's very difficult for me to provide any help to you in the outside world. The only thing I can do is to help you teach the sword spirits to help you a little. Besides, I don't have any sons or daughters or disciples in my life. These 5 little girls can just take me as their master and inherit my legacy. Most of my absolute arts can only be used by sword spirits. It's not very useful to ordinary people. However, it might be a great opportunity for these little girls. Ning Fan knew that the real reason why the Sacred Slaughter Heavenly Sword accepted the 5 little girls as its disciples was not because of their outstanding aptitudes. Instead, it wanted to help him nurture the sword spirits and increase his strength. No matter how high the aptitudes of these little girls are, they will never be higher than a true innate weapon spirit. Even though there are innate weapon spirits, they still exist in this world. If the Sacred Slaughter Heavenly Sword really wants to find a disciple to inherit its legacy, It won't be difficult to find a weapon spirit with a higher aptitude than the 5 little girls. It's just to help him. In the past, his impression of the Slaughter Palace was only about promises and kindness. Today, however, he gradually gained a trace of real affection for it. He also truly began to treat the Slaughter Palace as his home. A place where his elder brother cares about him. If it's not his home, then what is it? It had been a long time since the 5 little sword spirits went outside to have fun. As soon as they were released by Ning Fan, they immediately made a scene in the 7th level of the blood prison. Ning Fan was very doubtful whether these 5 mischievous little girls could really learn something from the sacred slaughter heavenly sword. It's not that their master is just too brilliant. It's that their disciples are too naughty. Fortunately, when the sacred slaughter heavenly sword released its slightly strict sword pressure, the 5 little girls immediately became obedient and terrified. They could not communicate with the sacred slaughter heavenly sword directly. However, when 2 swords communicate with each other, sometimes there was no need for words. Their sword intent intertwined and they could know each other's thoughts. It was unknown what the sacred slaughter heavenly sword said to the 5 little girls. In short, the 5 little girls who were making a scene just now actually respectfully kowtowed to the sword shadow in the bloodlight, worshipping him as their master. Seeing that the 5 little girls finally behaved themselves, Ning Fan also felt relieved. The reason why he left the 5 elemental vase behind was obviously to nourish the 5 little girls and help them improve their strength. A long time after Ning Fan left, the sacred slaughter heavenly sword suddenly conversed with the 5 little girls using its sword intent. What did I say? Your master likes you very much. He purposely left an innate magic treasure for you to help you cultivate. He hopes that you will learn something, and then marry you as his wives. That's why he endured the pain of parting with you temporarily, and let you stay here. Therefore you must learn well. Don't be naughty and don't let your master down. If you are naughty, your master will probably abandon you and marry another sword spirit as his wife. The sacred slaughter heavenly sword did not have the intention of deceiving the little girls at all. It made up a story in a serious manner. Upon hearing its words, the 5 little girls immediately became anxious and burst into tears. Wah! I will definitely learn well, and learn something to be little Fanfan's wife. I won't let the other sword spirits snatch my little Fanfan away. Jingjing cried. Wah! Mo will be very obedient. Mo wants to spend the rest of her life with little Fanfan, and give birth to a lot of little sword spirits. Mo's eyes were swollen from crying. Wah! I don't care what happens to other species and little Fanfan. Anyway, Shui wants to be little Fanfan's sword spirit's wife. No, Hua is little Fanfan's sword spirit's wife. I. A certain little sword spirit named Tong Tong also wanted to say something. Unfortunately, she could not get a word in. Thus, the 5 little girls soon began to argue about who would be little Fanfan's sword spirit's wife. Stop arguing. Whoever learns the most powerful ability will be the wife. This is what your master told me personally. Also, since you all have acknowledged me as your master, you will call me Uncle Master from now on. After all, I am your master's senior brother. Ah, little Fanfan has become our Uncle Master. It's so exciting to have a baby with Uncle Master. Mo likes this kind of taboo relationship. Shui likes it too. Hua likes it too. Tong also likes it, right? We all know that. Stop talking. You're making me anxious. All in all, the 5 little girls had really made up their minds this time to learn from the sacred slaughter, heavenly desolate sword. Even though their motive was not pure, they had already planned to have some forbidden relationship with Ning Fan that was beyond species and ethics. The sacred slaughter heavenly sword, on the other hand, behaved like an old child. It would lie to the 5 little girls whenever it had nothing to do. It never got tired of it. Old child. This was the kind of person. No, this kind of sword. The sacred slaughter heavenly sword was not an old-fashioned person. After half a year, Ning Fan finally walked out of the blood prison. The Nethersea immortal king who had been waiting outside for a long time was overjoyed and welcomed him. Young lord, did you have a good harvest? Yes, I did. I even got to know my own heart. In that case, I am even more looking forward to the second and third benefits that will come one after another on the day of the emperor crowning ceremony. I have too many abilities. Perhaps this is the time for me to condense them into one. When will the emperor crowning ceremony begin? Almost all the guests have arrived. But, when he thought of this, the Nether-Sea Immortal King suddenly felt a little awkward. This time he had sent out invitations to all the forces in the eastern sky for the coronation of the 8th Emperor of the Slaughter Palace. However, there were not many forces who were willing to do him the honor of attending the ceremony. It was the least number of people in the past emperor crowning ceremony. After all, Ningfan's identity was awkward and he was hated by the dark race. In that case, there would naturally not be too many people who dared to risk the world's condemnation to come and support Ningfan. However, if they were willing to come, they were all people who were worth befriending. It was not about the number of friends, but the quality of them. It was easy to add flowers to a brocade, but difficult to provide charcoal in snowy weather. Therefore, even if this was the emperor crowning ceremony with the least number of guests in the history of the Slaughter Palace, Ningfan would still treat it seriously and thank each and every one of them. Chapter 1097. Preparedness ensures success. Unpreparedness ensures failure. The best decision that Ningfan made was to send an order to his 2 servants, Earth Devil and Iron Crow, who were far away in the Qianqiu sect through telepathy before entering the Blood Prison. They would move the entire 1000-year sect into the Blood Sea Starfield where the Massacre Temple was located, and move their base of operations. Since Ningfan had already made up his mind to be the 8th killing emperor, it was naturally not good for him to be distracted. Thus, he might as well move the 2 great forces together, and manage them together. Of course, the 1000-year sect and its affiliated forces did not directly merge with the Massacre Hall. Instead, they resided in the Blood Sea Galaxy and existed independently. It was because the Qianqiu sect was Ningfan's private property. On the other hand, the Slaughter Palace was different. In the future, it would still be passed down to the 9th generation killing emperor. However, it was just temporarily under his management. It was not his private property. In this way, once these 2 different forces merged, there would be many problems that would surface. It was better not to do this. During the half a year that Ningfan was in the Blood Prison, the relocation plan of the Qianqiu sect had already been completed. There was no need for Zhang Yu and the others to make an appearance in the matter of moving the sect, and it would seem to be overkill to have Earth Demon and Iron Crow, these eternal immortal exalts, handle it. 2 10,000 ancient celestial sovereigns led the way, and a total of 37 cultivation planets were moved over. The momentum was extremely great, and it became a major event that shook the eastern sky. The forces that passed by along the way would usually consciously make way for the 37 cultivation planets, allowing the 37 cultivation planets to pass through their star regions. As for the countless bandits along the way, as soon as they heard that the Thousand Autumns sect was moving to another star region, they would suppress their greed and not dare to offend them. After all, the Thousand Autumns' old ancestor, Ningfan, had a notorious reputation. Thus, it was naturally easy for him to deter the bandits. Among these 37 cultivation planets, other than the main planet where the 1000-year sect was located, the remaining planets were all forces that had attached themselves to the 1000-year sect later on, such as the Herbal sect and the Six Desires sect. Even the weakest of them was a true immortal force. When the 37 cultivation planets arrived at the Blood Sea Star region, they were warmly welcomed by the cultivators of the Slaughter Palace. After all, Ningfan had already informed the immortal king of the Nether Sea about this matter. In the end, the 37 cultivation planets of the 1000-year sect were all moved to a place not far from the Slaughter Planet, merging into the same galaxy as the Slaughter Planet. In the long history of the Blood Sea Star region, there had been countless cases of xenophobic incidents. It was very difficult for foreign forces to gain a foothold in this place. However, it was different this time. Because Ningfan was the master of both the Slaughter Palace and the Qianqiu sect, none of the local cultivators could stop the Qianqiu sect from migrating here. Everything was going smoothly. Everything was progressing in an orderly manner. After settling down the thousand-year sect, the Massacre Hall cultivators continued to busy themselves with the coronation ceremony. To the Slaughter Palace, it was an important matter of utmost importance. It was supposed to be a grand occasion for the entire Eastern Heaven. Unfortunately, according to the Nethersea Immortal King, only a few old monsters of the Eastern Sky were willing to participate in this grand event. Most of them wanted to distance themselves from Ningfan and the declining Slaughter Palace. Ever since the news of the 7th-generation Xia Emperor's death quietly spread, the entire Eastern Sky was shaken. After all, as long as a quasi-saint didn't appear, the 7th-generation Killing Emperor could be said to be the strongest among all the Eastern Sky Emperors. Such a powerful character had quietly fallen, and anyone who heard it would sigh. Everyone believed that the Massacre Hall, which had flourished for 7 generations, would completely decline starting from the 8th generation. Ningfan will inherit the title of the 8th Killing Emperor? So what? Ningfan was just an ancient immortal venerate. No matter how strong he was, he could not be compared to a real immortal emperor. He could be said to be the weakest killing emperor in the history of the Massacre Hall. Reign immortal monarch? The 8th Killing Emperor? All of these are nonsense. The previous killing emperors of the Massacre Hall were all immortal emperors. The weakest of them was at the 6th Tribulation Realm. The stronger ones would even be at the 7th or 8th Tribulation Realm. Since when did an ancient immortal venerate get the title of Killing Emperor? The 8th Killing Emperor isn't a killing emperor. What a joke! I might as well change my title to Revered Killing Emperor. Ha ha ha. It seems like the Massacre Hall is really going to decline. They actually found an ancient immortal venerate to be their killing emperor. Moreover, this immortal venerate has a huge grudge against a secret race. Unwise. Unwise. The peak immortal emperor realm force that used to shake the Eastern Heaven is finally going to fall into a force of immortal venerates and immortal kings. How sad. How sad. Rumor has it that the Massacre Hall has a grudge against a certain secret race in the Southern Heaven. And this upcoming 8th Killing Emperor has a grudge against the Dark Race. Humph. He actually offended 2 secret races without an immortal emperor to protect him. It's not hard to imagine what will happen to him. He definitely won't be able to live for long. Even though we have received the invitation, it's better for us not to go to the Massacre Hall and get too involved with them. After Ningfan and the immortal king of the Nethersea settled the matters of the emperor conferring ceremony, they flew away from the Massacre Star planet and stood alone in the starry sky of the Blood Sea Star region. His long hair fluttered without any wind. His rain sense quietly spread out and extended towards the distant star regions. Under the cover of the rain sense, he heard too many rumors about the cultivators of the Eastern Heaven. He heard them mocking him one after another. No one thought highly of the Massacre Hall, and no one thought highly of him, the 8th Killing Emperor. The weakest killing emperor in history, huh? Hee. Ningfan smiled calmly and shook his head. He did not have any unnecessary emotions because of what the others thought of him. His will of rain wanted to head toward the eastern sky and explore a place known as the Darkness Continent. It was a continent that floated in the starry sky of the Eastern Heaven. No one knew how vast that continent was because it was said that all those who entered it were already dead. Even an immortal emperor would undoubtedly die if he trespassed on it. The cultivators of the Eastern Heaven in the past only knew that the Dark Continent was a place of great danger in the Eastern Heaven immortal world. However, only a few of them knew that the so-called Dark Continent was actually the place where a secret race resided. The Dark Race. Very few people knew about it. However, ever since the Dark Race sent Ningfan a challenge letter, and it spread across the entire Eastern Heaven, it was no longer a secret. The Dark Race that had been sealed in the long river of history had reappeared in the world. The Dark Race probably has some kind of relationship with the Devil Conferral Summit. Otherwise, that Taoist Baizu wouldn't have protected the cultivators of the Dark Race to enter the Extreme Pill Sacred Region. It has been half a year since I entered the Blood Prison. It's highly possible that Taoist Baizu has already come out from the Extreme Pill Sacred Region. Since he didn't come to kill me, does he have some other plans, or is he afraid of my master, Ancient Chaos Sect's reputation? Or perhaps he hasn't returned yet. Does the dark race already know about the huge commotion I caused in the extreme pill sacred region? After the second challenge letter, will they send a third challenge letter to urge me to go to the dark continent for a decisive battle? It's only a matter of time before I go to the dark continent. Before that, the emperor conferral ceremony is the most important. The succession of the young emperors in the past can obtain 3 types of benefits. The first is to listen to the sage speech. The second is to summon the Big Dipper boundless sea on the day of the emperor conferral ceremony. The third is to burn the incense and pluck the Tao after the baptism. When I listen to the sage speech, I can hear my own heartbeat. It's not an ordinary heartbeat, but an illusory Tao heart. I have a new attitude towards divine abilities and magic techniques. I'm about to try the second and third benefits of the emperor conferral ceremony. It should be the best time for me to condense my knowledge. Since I've walked out of the blood prison, there are only 10 days left before the emperor conferral ceremony. Ning Fan's figure flashed and disappeared from the starry sky. It was unknown whether he had returned to the slaughter planet or went to the nearby thousand-year sect. 10 days passed in the blink of an eye. During these 10 days, there would occasionally be scattered rays of light flying from the distant starry sky to join the Slaughter Palace's emperor conferral ceremony. There were just too few of them. It was not even as lively as the Slaughter Palace's recruitment of disciples in the past. It could not be compared to the unprecedented grand occasion when millions of exalted immortals came to congratulate the Slaughter Palace before the succeeding emperor conferral ceremony. Most of the people thought that it was a joke for Ning Fan to succeed the 8th killing emperor. Unfortunately, sometimes the opinions of the majority did not mean that they were correct. Ning Fan did not care about what the others thought. At least in the Slaughter Palace, they were very happy that he succeeded the 8th killing emperor. However, it was not suitable for them to express their happiness. After all, the 7th killing emperor had just passed away. No one would be able to truly smile. In the starry sky, there were no great red star lanterns like in the previous emperor conferral ceremonies. There was no immortal music, no colorful lights and no fireworks to celebrate. Since it was not the right time to celebrate, Ning Fan simply gave an order to keep everything simple. A simple sacrificial altar was built on the slaughter star. The venue was built around it. All the guests were seated in the venue outside the sacrificial altar. The sacrificial altar was different from ordinary sacrificial altars. The 4 sides were high while the center was low. It was like a square concave character. The low-lying area seemed to be used to store water. However, the disciples of the Slaughter Palace did not pour water into the center of the sacrificial altar. Instead, they were waiting for the emperor conferral ceremony to begin so that the sacrificial altar would automatically fill with seawater. It was said that when the previous killing emperors succeeded the throne, they could undergo a baptism in the seawater of the boundless sea of the Northern Dipper immortal domain. The benefits were great. Similarly, the guests who came to attend the ceremony could also obtain some benefits. Therefore, when the previous killing emperor succeeded the throne, all the guests would fight to the death to attend the ceremony. This time, however, the seats for the distinguished guests were all empty. Usually, only one party would be able to take a seat out of every 10 seats. The Nether Sea Immortal King sighed softly. Under the escort of the elders of the Slaughter Palace, he arrived at the venue of the ceremony in advance. He counted inwardly. There were only around 100 forces who came to congratulate Ning Fan. Most of them were just small forces in Eastern Heaven. How could he not feel sad when he saw such a scene? Could it be that my Slaughter Palace is really going to decline? No. As long as our young lord is here, there will definitely be hope. Seeing the arrival of the great elder of the Slaughter Palace, the 100 forces at the venue did not dare to be careless. They stood up and cupped their fists to greet him. After exchanging some pleasantries, they turned around and sat down. Among the 100 forces who came to congratulate him, there were actually only 4 immortal venerables of the past. These 4 people had once owed the Slaughter Palace a great favor. That was why they risked universal condemnation to come here. There was not a single immortal king among them. It was obviously incomparable to the day when Ning Fan was admitted into the Slaughter Palace. Where are the friends of that little fellow? Why aren't any of them here? The forces who came are actually the forces that have a close relationship with the Slaughter Palace. That's right. That little fellow's personality is cold and forceful. I'm afraid he doesn't have many true friends in the entire Eastern Heaven. Yao Qingyan gritted her teeth. She felt that it was unfair for Ning Fan's emperor conferral ceremony to be so quiet. Suddenly, a ray of light rushed back from a distant star region and headed straight to the venue of the Star of Slaughter. When the guards of the Slaughter Palace saw that the ray of light was rushing towards them recklessly, they wanted to stop him. However, when they saw that the ray of light gave them a signal, they realized that he was actually someone from the same palace. Thus, they let him go and did not stop him. They thought that the other party must be a cultivator from the Slaughter Palace who was in a hurry to return to the Emperor conferral ceremony. Because he was too anxious to participate in the Emperor conferral ceremony, he suddenly barged into the venue without proper etiquette. His impatience was understandable. That ray of light was not wearing a mask. After he entered the venue, he explained to the guards apologetically and gave them a congratulatory gift for participating in the ceremony. Then he found a seat at the back and sat down. He was Wuchen. After completing the mission in the wild wilderness in the past, he was sent back to the Slaughter Palace branch where he was previously stationed. Even though the 8th Slaughter Emperor's ascension to the throne was important, Ning Fan had given an order in advance. He did not want the people of the branch who were far away in the Myriad World Star region to rush back, just for a mere formality. The pavilion lords of the Slaughter Palace branch who were stationed outside had been working hard all year round. They were busy taking on missions. Some of them had even completed half of their missions, and were already close to success. If they had to travel across countless galaxies to rush back to the main palace, many of them would have to give up on the missions that they had spent countless efforts on. Besides, they would also need to spend a huge amount of manpower and resources just to rush back to the main palace. It was really not worth it. As the pavilion lord of the branch, Wuchen did not need to rush back in a hurry. As a disciple of the main palace, he also did not need to send a congratulatory gift. However, he still insisted on coming back. He still insisted on going through this formality. He was not a person who cared about formalities. However, he had to support his friend. Even if he was just a small fry like Du Jun, even if the congratulatory gift that he had tried his best to find was insignificant in the eyes of countless old monsters, he still had to come. Behind Yao Qingyan, an elder recognized Wu Chen who had disrupted the order of the venue. He frowned and said with displeasure, "This young man from the Wu family is too reckless. The emperor conferral ceremony is such a formal occasion. However, he actually destroyed the order of it all by himself. Could it be that the joy that Du Jun brought to him has made him lose his sense of measure and think that he can do whatever he wants in the world? It seems like we need to find an opportunity to punish this young man a little and give him a warning. We can't let him be too arrogant. This is also for his own good." Another elder who acted like a peacemaker advised, "Forget it. This young man is the pavilion lord of this branch. Moreover, his branch is extremely far away from the main star. Since he is willing to come back, it means that he has good intentions. There's no need to punish him." This disciple vaguely knows that this Wu Chun and young lord have a close relationship. When young lord's cultivation base was still weak, I had seen young lord going to Wu Chen's branch to look for him. The two of them even had a pleasant conversation. A low-level life immortal realm cultivator, who was standing beside an elder, suddenly said. As soon as his words fell, all the elders' expressions changed. Some of them even asked Wu Chun with a serious expression, when, where, and how did Wu Chun get to know Ning Fan? After confirming that Wu Chun might really have a close relationship with Ning Fan, even the strict elder who threatened to punish Wu Chun no longer dared to say anything bad about him. Those who were utilitarian were extremely envious of Wu Chun. One should know that the most precious friendship in the world was the friendship of commoners. Since this Wu Chun could sincerely befriend Ning Fan when he was still weak, he must have some weight in Ning Fan's heart. In the future, Ning Fan would simply be a real emperor in the Slaughter Palace. There was a saying among mortals, "The superior is the teacher of the emperor," The middle is the friend of the emperor, and the lowest is the subject of the emperor. This Wu Chen is the friend of the emperor. His future is bright. Those who valued friendship understood why Wu Chen was in a hurry to return to the slaughter palace. Given Wu Chen's cultivation base, he must have been on his way as soon as he received the news that he had to travel across the starry sky from such a faraway branch. Because he had been traveling at his fastest speed for half a year without resting or sleeping, everyone could see the exhaustion on his body. Moreover, his body was slightly damaged. Moreover, for some unknown reason, his injuries seemed to be extremely serious. Wu Chen's arrival was to bring a congratulatory gift. Not long after, the attendant disciple who was in charge of receiving the gift checked that there was nothing in it. After that, he officially registered and accepted Wu Chen's gift. After that, he reported to the people beside him with slight surprise. The pavilion lord of this branch, Wu Chen, has sent a tuft of 8 million years old spiritual herb as a congratulatory gift. Hiss. Immediately, the people in the hall gasped in surprise. An 8 million years old spiritual herb was a rare treasure even to the thought-breaking old monster. How could this Wu Chen, who was just at the Duzhen cultivation realm, have it? Could he afford it? No, that's not right. He didn't buy it. When the attendant disciple opened the box to check the spiritual herb, some people noticed that the roots of the spiritual herb had soil that had yet to dry up. There were even bloodstains on the soil. Judging from the smell of the spiritual herb, it was Wu Chen's blood. This spiritual herb was actually picked by Wu Chen in a dangerous place while risking his life with his Duzhen cultivation realm. Is this Wu Chen crazy? He actually risked his life to pick an 8 million years old spiritual herb with his Duzhen cultivation realm. Within the Eastern Heaven, any place that has such a spiritual herb is an extremely dangerous place. There's a risk of death even if one enters that place with his thought-breaking old monster. Some of the elders were slightly shocked. When they looked at Wu Chen again, their eyes were filled with respect. That respect was no longer because of Ning Fan's nepotism. Yao Qingyan was also slightly shocked. Then, a smile appeared on her face and she nodded with satisfaction. Even though this Wu Chen's cultivation base is only average, his character isn't bad. Ning Fan really knows how to pick his friends. Even if there are only a few people who attend the ceremony, as long as one or two of Ning Fan's sincere friends come, he probably won't feel regretful given his personality. Sure enough, she was still afraid that Ning Fan would have regrets during the most important ceremony in his life. The auspicious hour was getting closer. Suddenly, another ray of traveling light arrived in the cold and empty starry sky. It was different from Wu Chen. Wu Chen was just at the Duzhen cultivation realm. That was why he was stopped by the guards, because he was a little reckless. That person had yet to show himself. However, just by looking at the traveling light, one could tell that he was an immortal king with a shocking cultivation base. Thus, no one stopped him. They could only welcome him. The expressions of the immortal king of the Nether Sea and the other elders also eased up because of the arrival of this immortal king. They heaved a sigh of relief. One should know that there was not a single immortal king among the guests of the Slaughter Palace until now. The arrival of this person could more or less cover up the embarrassment of the ceremony. However, no one knew who this immortal king was. Was it Immortal King Ling Tong, who had a close relationship with the Nethersea Immortal King, or Immortal King Guzhou, who had sworn to owe his life to the 7th generation Immortal King? Or, while the elders were guessing, their eyes suddenly widened. Then they sighed and smiled bitterly. They had guessed wrongly. The person who came was not an immortal king who had a close relationship with the Slaughter Palace. Instead, he was Ning Fan's friend. In the sparse hall, gasps of surprise could be heard. It's actually the Plague King LV1. Wasn't he still in seclusion to heal his injuries? Why did he come out? Rumor has it that the Plague King and the Rain Lord are sworn brothers. Now it seems like it's true. This Plague King has a bad reputation in the outside world. However, his character is still commendable. Now that Great Emperor Ancient Chaos doesn't have much time left, everyone is avoiding the Rain Lord like a snake or a scorpion. However, this person is still willing to support the Rain Lord. Rumor has it that the Plague King is also a guest elder of the 1,000 Years sect. It seems like this rumor is true. However, the The Plague King is also a guest elder of the Godly Void Pavilion. Could it be that he is here to represent the Godly Void Pavilion? As if he had heard the discussions in the crowd, Lu Feng laughed and answered. I am not here to represent the Godly Void Pavilion. I am just here to support my sworn brother. Even though there aren't many fellow Taoists here, all of them are good people. All of them are good people. Ha! His tone was not rude. Instead, it was extremely polite. He was not a polite person by nature. He was also not someone who liked to talk. However, today was an important day for Ning Fan. He would try his best to control himself and not speak nonsense or cause trouble to avoid ruining the atmosphere. After exchanging greetings with the Nether Sea Immortal King and the others, he entered the hall and presented his gift. When the attendant opened the gift box, he felt a fishy smell rushing towards his face. He immediately frowned. However, when he saw the source of the fishy smell, he was instantly shocked. Iron. The fossil of an iron-armored divine rhinoceros. This item is genuine. Upon hearing this, the hall was instantly filled with shock. Of course, there were also some female cultivators who blushed. Although a cow's penis was not something that could be displayed in public, the cow's penis of an iron-armored divine rhinoceros was an exception. In ancient times, the iron-armored divine rhinoceros was one of the most beloved mounts of the ancient gods. It was a species of rhinoceros. It would not recognize its master without the blood of the ancient gods. This rhinoceros was known as the iron-armored divine rhinoceros. However, it did not have any scales on its body. It only had thick skin. Any part of its body could withstand a full-force attack from a cultivator at the same level as it. It was a species that was born with the ability to fight against cultivators at a higher cultivation level. Even a cow's penis, which was the weakness of a male cultivator, could pierce through the armor of a cultivator at the same level as it and use it as a weapon. The iron-armored divine rhinoceros had long been extinct. Even if it was a fossil, there were definitely not many of them left in this world. It was definitely not easy for Lu Feng to find this item. His intention was very sincere. It was just that the value of this fossil was so great that it could almost move some immortal emperors. If it was an immortal king, he would definitely fight for it, and use it to refine a magic treasure. Plague King, do you still have any other parts of the iron-armored divine rhinoceros? We don't dare to covet this bull's penis as a gift to Rain Lord. However, if there are any other parts that are not stable, we will be extremely happy to ask for some of the bull's horns, hooves, and teeth. If there are any, we are willing to exchange all our assets for it. A few immortal venerables at the venue asked with envious eyes. Sigh, if I had those parts, would I have given a bullwhip to my sworn brother? I also know that this object is offensive to public decency. However, I thought about it again. Bullwhip is good. My sworn brother cultivates the great Tao of dual cultivation. If he forcibly inserts it into a magic treasure, wouldn't that be, cough cough cough, a slip of the tongue, a slip of the tongue. Haha. Fellow Taoists, please comprehend it yourselves. Ha ha ha. LV Feng's dirty joke amused many of the men present, but it also made many of the female cultivators blush. All in all, it slightly heated up the cold atmosphere of the venue. Yao Qingyun's face was flushed red, cursing this sworn brother of Ning Fan in her heart. Why is he so improper? What kind of people are they? My sworn brother is now an emperor, and he gave me a bullwhip. Moreover, it's the bullwhip of an iron-armored divine rhinoceros. Does Ning Fan still need to replenish it? Even if he doesn't replenish it, she has already shone brightly for 3 days and 3 nights. If he replenishes it, will she be directly poked to death? Like brother, like brother. Tui tui, they're all so shameless. However, this person is not bad. Being willing to show up at this moment is equivalent to standing on the opposite side of the dark race. If Ning Fan is killed by the dark race in the future, LV Feng won't have a good ending either. That little fellow might be shameless, but he really knows how to make friends. Today, with a friend and a brother here, he should have no regrets. While Yao Qingyun was thinking to herself, she suddenly heard an earth-shattering laughter coming from the distant starry sky. Haha, what a coincidence. Brother LV actually thought of the same thing as me. You took the bullwhip of an iron-armored divine rhinoceros as a gift while I took the dragon essence of an immemorial flood dragon as a gift. We don't care too much about empty gifts. It doesn't matter if the gifts are presentable or not. What's important is the sincerity. We all want to make Brother Ning's masculinity rise to the next level on the bed. This sincere concern is something that can't be bought with 1,000 gold coins. Before he arrived, his laughter had already reached them. It carried a vast aura of an Emperor Realm expert. Everyone was shocked. Even the immortal king of the Nether Sea was surprised. He did not expect that even the Battle King Luo Ho, who was about to become an Emperor Realm expert, would be here. Moreover, he actually took out the dragon essence of an immemorial flood dragon. It was said that a drop of it was more valuable than an innate spiritual herb. Many male cultivators were envious of the so-called dragon essence, while many female cultivators cursed at him. Yao Qingyun's face turned red. She never knew that the Battle King Luo Ho was such a person. Sure enough, once you become friends with Ning Fan, you will definitely be led astray. What a bunch of shameless fellows. However, the atmosphere of the hall was forcefully heated up by these people. Perhaps this is their real intention. They don't want Ning Fan's good days to be too quiet and cold, although they are just a bunch of scoundrels, but they are indeed a group of good friends. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.